Chapter 1558. Iwenzhua turned around and looked at her suspiciously. Shang Wanyu should have just woken up not long ago. Nan Suhuai and the others should be taking good care of her. Why did they send her here alone? Moreover, she was looking for Jun Jiuqing. We had some conflicts before, but we couldn't resolve them. That's why I've come here today to clarify everything that happened before. Chu Luiyue was magnanimous, and her lips curved up slightly. This is your place. You're not worried that I'll do something here, are you? Who are you talking about? Iwenzhua's face turned even colder. You can talk it out yourselves. After that, he looked at Jun Jiuqing meaningfully. Don't delay your cultivation. Jun Jiuqing nodded. Yes. In the room, Chu Luiyue and Jun Jiuqing sat opposite each other. The door was open, but the room was shrouded in a barrier. Neither of them was worried that someone would eavesdrop on them. The atmosphere was cold, and the air froze. Chu Luiyue went straight to the point. Jun Jiuqing, send my father back safe and sound, and we can forget about the grudge between us. Jun Jiuqing knew that she was here for this matter. Hearing this, his brows furrowed for a moment before he regained his composure. I don't know where he is. Chu Luiyue's eyes turned cold. She sat up straight, and her shoulders were ramrod straight. Her black, jade-like eyes were fixed on Jun Jiuqing. Then, a cold smile appeared on the corners of her mouth. It seems that you have no intention of negotiating with me. I really don't know. Jun Jiuqing leaned back in his chair. Unfathomable emotions surged in the depths of his long, narrow eyes. I took him away to prevent you from coming back. Now that you're back and have recovered your memories, he's no longer useful to me. There's no need for me to hide this from you. Looking at Jun Jiuqing's expression, Chu Luiyue's heart sank. At first, I ordered people to bring him to the Godslayer Mound. Chu Luiyue's expression suddenly changed. Jun Jiuqing, Godslaying Mound. That was one of the most dangerous places in the Divine Ruins world. According to Chu Ning's cultivation, going there was simply a 90% chance of death. Jun Jiuqing raised his hand. Don't worry, it's only at the edge, so it won't be fatal to him. What's more, I've been sending people to follow him in secret. What's the point of taking his life? Chu Luiyue suppressed the raging flames in his heart. Although she had never liked to deal with Jun Jiuqing, she had to admit that his words were not without reason. From the very beginning, he only wanted to use Chu Ning to threaten her. The more this was the case, the more he would pay attention to protecting Chu Ning's life. Since it was you who sent him to the God-slaying mound, why are you saying that you don't know? Chu Luiyue questioned word by word. Jun Jiuqing suddenly laughed. You should ask Chu Ning or yourself this question. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Jun Jiuqing continued. After my people sent him to the God-slaying mound, he's been fine. But just a month ago, in one night, my men were completely wiped out, and Chu Ning disappeared. It was also the day you recalled the divine realm and regained your memory. Chu Luiyue narrowed his eyes. Really? Jun Jiuqing gently tapped the armrest with a half-smile. I can tell you honestly that among the people I sent, there was a great god and 3 demigods. They were all strong generals under my command. This time, I also suffered heavy losses. But I don't even know who did it. Not to mention one Chu Ning. Even if there were 10 of him, it wouldn't be worth it for me to pay such a heavy price. Jun Jiuqing's words were a little harsh, but they were also straightforward. Chu Luiyue frowned. She knew that Jun Jiuqing's status in the clan was not at the top. This time, he had lost 4 experts, so he must have been under a lot of pressure. He really didn't have to do this. When I received the news, you were already unconscious. Rong Xiao had been guarding Jiuheng Mountain. Even if I wanted to tell you, I didn't have the chance. Jun Jiuqing raised his eyebrows slightly, and there was a hint of undisguised sarcasm in his lazy and hoarse voice. Chu Luiyue fell into deep thought. If that was the case, then where was Chu Ning now? You and Chu Ning probably can't contact each other. Unless you can find him, no one knows what happened that day. Of course, perhaps you should also ask yourself, you have offended so many people, and there must be many who want to take advantage of the opportunity to attack you, right? Chu Luiyue looked at Jun Jiuqing coldly. After a while, she got up. I'll believe you for now. If I find out that you're lying in the future, I'll definitely make you pay 1,000 times over. With that, she lifted her feet and walked out. Jun Joqing's men were all dead, so they probably didn't leave any clues. There was no need to continue asking. When she walked to the door, Jun Joqing's voice suddenly came from behind her. If you hadn't insisted on coming back and stayed with me in the northern underworld, none of this would have happened. Chu Liyue stopped in her tracks and looked back. Jun Joqing's expression was languid. Although he was smiling, his expression was extremely cold. To others, forgetting the past might be a calamity. But for her, it was no different from a relief. Unfortunately, she was too stubborn, and Rongxiu, he was too indulgent towards her. The two of them looked at each other. After a while, Chu Liyue suddenly asked, "When I left the academy, not many people knew the inside story. Even Rongxiu didn't know until later. How did you know?" The room was shrouded in cold air, and the atmosphere was stagnant. Jun Joqing suddenly smiled, his demonic aura spreading. "I have my own ways." Chu Liyue knew that she wouldn't get an answer even if she continued to ask, so she turned and left. It wasn't until her figure disappeared outside the door that the smile on Jun Joqing's face gradually faded. He closed his eyes and sat in his seat for a while. The atmosphere around him was extremely cold. After a while, he got up and walked toward Yiwen's room. Chu Liyue was a little upset. She thought that when she saw Jun Joqing, she could ask him to send her father back. She didn't expect that something would go wrong. Last time, the contact between her and her father had been broken. Now she couldn't get any news at all. Even if he was still in the God-slaying mound, that place was vast and boundless. Looking for a person was like looking for a needle in a haystack. After returning to Zhuheng Mountain, Chu Liyue wanted to discuss with Rongxiu, but found that Rongxiu wasn't there. He was probably in the Dongwang Bell Tower. Chu Liyue thought so and returned to her room. It was already evening. The afterglow of the setting sun shone in through the window, and the room was golden. Chu Liyue frowned and thought for a long time, but still couldn't figure it out. She had to put the matter aside for the time being. She held her breath and closed her eyes. In her dantian, a gorgeous water droplet was quietly suspended. Chu Liyue's mind moved, and the water droplet's shape changed, and in a flash, it became a broken page. It was clear and bright, and full of colors. Digression, 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1559. I don't know where the remaining pages are. Chu Liyue muttered softly. Back then, in order to hide them, she didn't hesitate to suppress the divine realm and take the risk to return to Tianling. She even lost her life for this. Now that she was back, she had to continue looking for the remaining pages. If she could find all the items, many problems might be solved. At this moment, there was a sudden knock on the door. Chu Liyue collected her thoughts and got up to open the door. Rongxiu? The person outside the door was Rongxiu. It seemed that he had just returned. However, his expression didn't look right. Chu Liyue asked curiously, "You? What's wrong?" Rongxiu took her hand and returned to the room. After standing still in the room, he looked at Chu Liyue and said in a deep voice, "Patriarch is unconscious." Chu Liyue was stunned. It took her a moment to realize who he was talking about. Patriarch Bailey? Rongxiu nodded slightly. Umo came just now and personally delivered the news. No wonder he wasn't here just now. Chu Liyue frowned. When did this happen? Why did he faint all of a sudden? More than a month ago in Fangzhou City, he was clearly fine. How long had it been? Rongxiu shook his head. Umo said that after he returned to Yuntian Tower last time, he had been staying in his residence and didn't come out. At first, the people below didn't notice that something was wrong. It was only later that Elder Yu Jing had an urgent matter to report and didn't open the door for a long time that they became suspicious and forced their way in. Elder Yu Jing immediately informed Umo and asked him to come over personally. This was a serious matter. Of course, someone had to report to Rongxiu. Chu Liyue's heart sank. In other words, no one knew when Patriarch Bailey fell unconscious. And the reason is unknown. Rongxiu paused and his voice turned cold. The news hasn't been suppressed. Now all the higher-ups of the Yuntian Tower know about it. This included the patriarchs of the 28 divisions. Chu Luiwei understood almost instantly. Did someone suspect you? Rong Xiu's thin lips curved slightly. Other than me, I don't think there's anyone who wants to do this more than me. Although he was smiling, the corners of his eyes were cold. Right now, all the elders are waiting for me at the Yuntian Tower. They plan to investigate this matter thoroughly. They claim to be investigating the truth, but it was obvious that they were here for him. Everyone knew that Bailey Jun and Rong Xiu had always been on bad terms. Previously, they had tried to cover it up a little. However, the last time in Fangzhou City, both sides had completely fallen out with each other. Now that something had happened to Bailey Jun as soon as he returned, everyone would naturally cast their suspicious eyes on Rong Xiu. Even though Bailey Jun had lost his reputation, he was still the patriarch of the Yuntian Tower. If something had happened to him, he would not let it go easily. Needless to say, there might be someone who wanted to take advantage of the chaos to stir up trouble. Chu Yueyue's brows furrowed tightly. Then I'll go back for a while. Rong Xiu pulled her into his arms and gently rested his chin on her forehead. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. He had originally planned to go to the Divine Phoenix Mountain with her. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath. A faint fragrance slowly spread in her chest. Her heart instantly calmed down a lot. Don't worry, I can handle my own matters. As for the Yuntian Tower, Patriarch Bailey has a high status after all. If he didn't set up the trap himself, then someone else must have taken the opportunity to frame you. This was very different from Rong Xiu's forceful rise to power and power. If Rong Xiu's murder of the Patriarch was confirmed, it would become a stain that could never be washed away. He could not give face to the Patriarch, and he could also make the Patriarch a mere figurehead, but he could not be accused of murdering the Patriarch. Rong Xiu nodded. He did have a lot of power in the Yuntian Tower, but it was inevitable that there would be people who would harbor evil intentions. Some things have to be cleaned up sooner or later. Rong Xiu lowered his head and kissed her gently between her eyebrows. Chu Luiwei wrapped her arms around his waist. Then why don't we make a promise? Whoever solves the problem at hand first will go to the other person. Rong Xiu cupped her face and kissed her lips. Okay. Rong Xiu did not waste too much time and soon left with UMO. After Chu Luiwei packed up, simply, she went to Phoenix Celestial Mountain with Shangguan Jing the next day. Originally, Nan Su Huai also wanted to tag along, but considering that the Spirit Firmament Academy had been in a lot of trouble recently, it was time for Nan Su Huai to take charge of the overall situation. Furthermore, she did not want to implicate the Academy again, so she tactfully declined. After a month of recuperation, Dumpling's injuries were almost healed. Under its lead, Chu Luiwei and the others left the college and went straight to Phoenix Mountain. Phoenix Mountain had always been mysterious to the people of the Divine Ruins world. In recent years, they had been keeping a low profile, so everyone was curious. Rumor had it that tens of thousands of years ago, the Great Phoenix Dragon and the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix were born at the same time. One ice and one fire, opposing each other. In the long years, the bloodlines of the two ancient divine beasts gradually diverged and gave birth to several divine beasts. But in terms of bloodline status, these two were still the highest. It was also because of this that the characters of these two great clans were extremely arrogant. Without permission, humans could not easily set foot on their respective territories. Chu Luiwei had never thought that she would go to Phoenix Mountain to apologize one day. Of course, that was just a euphemism. She knew better than anyone what awaited her on this trip. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1560. The Phoenix God Mountain did not have a transport formation connecting it to the outside world. Hence, Chu Luiwei and the rest followed, Dumpling on foot. It was a long journey. After sleeping for a month in the academy, Chu Yueyue's injuries were mostly healed. Now that she had broken through to the high god level, her strength had improved greatly in all aspects. Naturally, her speed was much faster than before. Even so, they had walked for 10 days, and they were only halfway there. The further they went, the more barren the environment became. At first, they could still bump into a few people on the way. However, after a while, there was basically no one around. Just like that, they finally arrived after another 8 days of arduous trekking. Looking at the vast and boundless sea before them, Chu Luiwei and Shangguan Jing were stunned. This is the Phoenix God Mountain. Chu Luiwei spoke with some uncertainty. Behind them was a vast expanse of wilderness, and in front of them were surging waves. It was noon. The brilliant sunlight shone on the surface of the sea, making it sparkle. At a glance, it was a sea of blue. However, there was not even an island, let alone a mountain. It was empty, silent, and desolate. Only the sound of the wind brushing the surface of the sea could be heard. Other than that, there was no other sound. More importantly, there did not seem to be any living beings here. Dumpling crouched on her shoulder and nodded vigorously. Although it had never been here before, after breaking through to the crimson gold heavenly phoenix, the memories and power from its bloodline allowed it to find this place naturally. This was indeed the Phoenix God Mountain. Dumpling blinked. Then it flapped its wings and flew up. Screech! A clear screech reverberated in the distance. Look! Shangguan Jing suddenly cried out in surprise. Chu Luiwei immediately looked forward. She saw that the sea surface was rapidly condensing in front of her. In the blink of an eye, it formed an ice bridge. This so-called ice bridge was actually very narrow. It could only accommodate one person at a time. The sparkling and translucent layer of ice extended forward in a straight line above the water surface. The surrounding seawater was still surging, but it could not move this ice bridge at all. Under the sunlight, it seemed to be suffused with specks of crimson gold. At a glance, it looked like the blue sky was sprinkled with twinkling stars. It looked as exquisite and beautiful as glass. However, Chu Yue's heart instantly hung in the air, because she could clearly feel the powerful pressure coming from the ice bridge. Her sixth sense had always been sharp. Hence, when she first saw the ice bridge, she did not think of beauty. I'll go. Shangguan Jing obviously realized this as well. He said in a deep voice and walked forward. His figure moved and flew. He headed straight for the ice bridge. However, just as he was about to land, a cluster of scarlet gold flames suddenly sprang out from the ice bridge. The flame was only the size of a fist, but it was extremely hot. Shangguan Jing had a bad feeling. He immediately set up a barrier in front of him and dodged quickly at the same time. However, the next scene made Shangguan Jing's expression change abruptly. When the flame landed on the barrier in front of him, it did not stop for a moment. The entire barrier started to burn. In an instant, the flame rose with the wind. The terrifying heat hit him. A few sparks scattered, leaving several scars on his hand. Intense pain assaulted him. Shangguan Jing gritted his teeth, but he was even more shocked. He was a weapon-refining venerable, and his physical strength was extremely strong. This flame could actually burn him directly. It could be seen that its power could not be underestimated. At this moment, a second flame suddenly shot out from his side. It instantly attacked Shangguan Jing from the front and the back. Helplessly, he could only turn around and return to the shore. As soon as he retreated, the flame quickly stopped and quietly fell back to the ice bridge. If not for the few fresh burns on Shangguan Jing's hand, it would really look like nothing had happened. Chu Luiwei immediately walked over. Taizu, are you all right? Shangguan Jing shook his head. I'm fine. It's just some flesh wounds. But he frowned and looked forward. Even he found it difficult to pass through, let alone Chu Luiwei. At this moment, a vast and indifferent voice suddenly came from afar. Except for Shangguan Yu, no one else is allowed to take a step into the Phoenix God Mountain. The voice seemed to have traveled through time and space and arrived with wind and frost. Chu Yue's chest felt stuffy. Her temples were throbbing and her eardrums were vibrating. The blood in her body seemed to be boiling at this moment and was about to burn her. She was shocked. She hurriedly calmed her mind and bit the tip of her tongue. The sweet and fishy taste spread between her lips and teeth. The intense pain finally woke her up. She took a deep breath and raised her eyes to look forward. This was the voice of the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Shangguan Jing's expression also changed. They had just arrived, and the other party had already taken him down a notch. It was obviously intentional. Dumpling flapped her wings and stood in front of Chu Luiwei. Her black eyes were filled with anger and fighting spirit. Screech! In this clear and bright cry, there was undisguised hostility. No matter who it was, if they wanted to make things difficult for her, they would be going against it. Breaking through halfway, you really lack discipline. The voice was suddenly furious. Are you going to defy the power of your bloodline for this lowly human? As soon as he finished speaking, the sky changed color and the wind howled. On the surface of the sea, huge waves were instantly swept up. They surged over. Digression, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1561. Whoosh! The sound of something tearing through the air was heard. Light flickered on Dumpling's body, and it instantly transformed from that petite and dainty appearance to a huge figure. Its wings flapped, and the wind howled. It charged straight ahead. Reddish-gold flames suddenly burned around its body. The next moment, these flames surged out crazily and actually rapidly condensed into a wall of fire, blocking the monstrous waves. Flames and seawater intertwined, emitting an ear-piercing sound. Chu Luiwei's heart clenched. This was clearly not ordinary seawater, and the pressure it contained was extremely heavy. Dumpling's injuries had just recovered, and it was clearly not easy to deal with this scene. All of a sudden, Tuanzi changed its direction and rushed directly toward the waves. The reddish-gold figure forcefully passed through it. Suddenly, a hole was torn in the wind and waves that had been stirred up, and with that place as the center, the flames started to burn even more crazily. The seawater started to evaporate rapidly. Before long, the waves receded, and the sea's surface gradually calmed down. Dumpling flew back in front of Chu Luiwei, still blocking her firmly behind it. The power of bloodline is also considered not bad. The voice came again and seemed to be judging Tuanzi. There was a hint of imperceptible surprise in the words. You're not a natural Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix, so your bloodline and strength are naturally slightly inferior. Moreover, your origin was originally a 9-colored heavenly pheasant. To be able to break through to today's realm, you're also considered to have great luck. However, to want to return to the clan, it's not something you can accomplish just by breaking through. This tone was still high and mighty. Chu Luiwei's thoughts turned, and only then did she understand that the battle just now was a show of strength, and also the other party's test for Dumpling. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's emphasis on bloodline could be said to be strict. If one was not a natural Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix, but came from other divine beasts breaking through the shackles, they were actually quite discriminated against here, especially when Dumpling was not even a divine beast at the beginning. In their eyes, this was naturally even more unfavorable. However, the strength that Dumpling displayed clearly surprised the other party a little. However, Chu Luiwei actually didn't care much about this. Chu Luiwei's sharp eyes saw that 2 wounds had appeared on its body, and at this time, blood was already slowly seeping out. Her brows slightly furrowed, and a trace of coldness flashed past her eyes. Dumpling had already been injured before they had truly stepped into the Phoenix Mountain. She didn't know what the situation would be like inside. This trip was probably going to be much more difficult than he had expected. Shang Wanyu, do you only know how to hide behind so cowardly? There is undisguised mockery in that voice. If you have the guts, come yourself. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath in and looked at Tuanzi. Dumpling, come here. Dumpling did not. Listen. Chu Luiwei slightly emphasized her tone. Tuanzi then turned around and moved back unwillingly. She took a step forward and gently caressed Dumpling's body. Senior, you're right. Since you're my contracted magical beast, I'll naturally be responsible for everything. Dumpling's eyes flickered, and it lowered its head to rub against her palm. Chu Luiwei looked ahead. Senior, since I brought Tuanzi back today, I've made up my mind to make this matter clear. The surroundings were silent for a moment. Then that voice sounded again. You're quite confident. Chu Luiwei didn't say anything. She knew that since the other party had asked her to come over, it definitely wasn't as simple as showing off. If you want to clarify this matter, it's very simple. As long as you cross this ice bridge and come to me personally, I'll naturally give you a chance to speak. Shangwan Jing frowned. These words really made people feel uncomfortable listening to them. What did he mean by give you a chance to speak? So if they didn't cross, they wouldn't even have a right to speak to them? Chu Luiwei immediately agreed. Okay, you are. Shangwan Jing said worriedly. Taizu, don't worry. I'll be back soon. Chu Luiwei knew that he was worried and smiled at him comfortingly. You know that I don't do things that I'm not confident of. Since she dared to come, she had already made all the preparations. Shangwan Jing looked at her fixedly, feeling conflicted. After a long while, he nodded. I'll wait for you here. Chu Luiwei smiled, composed herself, straightened her back, and walked forward. Dumpling followed closely behind her. The moment Chu Luiwei stepped onto the ice bridge, she felt a boiling heat wave sweeping over from under her feet. She lowered her eyes to take a look. Under the clear and transparent ice layer, reddish-gold starlight was exploding into clusters of flames one after another. That was where the terrifying heat came from. She stopped in her tracks, and her body instantly burned with reddish-gold flames. These were naturally Dumpling's flames. With the protection of this layer of flames, the burning pain under her feet was instantly blocked out. Chu Yoyue's expression didn't change as she continued to walk forward. She didn't walk fast, but her steps were very steady. Step by step, she landed on the ice bridge as if she had the strength of 1,000 caddies. She was determined, persistent, and indomitable. Phoenix Temple. The solemn and dignified main hall was solemn. An old man stood in the center of the main hall with his hands behind his back. A huge ball of light floated in front of him. An illusion appeared in the ball of light. Above the vast and boundless sea, a woman was walking slowly. Behind her, a reddish-gold heavenly phoenix was following closely. As an ancient divine beast, it's actually so servile to the human race. How embarrassing. Clan leader, that's just a reddish-gold heavenly phoenix that broke through from a 9-colored heavenly pheasant. Even if it has the bloodline of the clan, it shouldn't be much. Why did you spend so much effort to lure them here? Behind the old man, there were a few clan elders standing. They all had disapproving looks on their faces. Such behavior is no different from betraying the clan. In my opinion, we should kill both the human and the beast. Digression, sorry, it's a little late. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1562. Yi Zhao was silent for a moment before he said calmly, anyone with the bloodline of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan must acknowledge their ancestors and return to the clan. This is the rule set by our ancestors, and no one can go against it. As soon as he said this, the elders behind him looked at each other in dismay. Moreover, in recent years, the bloodline of the clan has been gradually decreasing. Although this one broke through from the 9-colored heavenly pheasant, it still has the power of the bloodline. As long as its bloodline is pure enough, the advantages of acknowledging it will outweigh the disadvantages. The hall was silent for a moment. What the clan leader said makes sense. Elder Yishang nodded in agreement. Although it doesn't have a high background, it's still considered rare to be able to successfully break through from the 9-colored heavenly pheasant. From the strength it displayed just now, its bloodline power doesn't seem to be too bad. As long as its aptitude is good, we'll let bygones be bygones. The one who spoke out first was the first elder of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Yigong couldn't help but snort coldly. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan has a noble status. Since when did we form a contract with a human? No matter what, it's wrong to do so. Elder Yishang smiled, his eyes indifferent. You can't say that. I heard that it had formed a contract with the Shangwan Yu in the past, and it only had a fortuitous encounter in Lingxiao College that allowed it to break through. When it formed a contract with the Shangwan Yu in the past, it probably didn't expect itself to break through and become a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix. In fact, it's not entirely its fault. It was just a few simple words, but they were filled with the glint of knives and shadows of swords, and undercurrents were surging. The remaining 3 elders exchanged glances and became even more silent. At this time, it was better for them to keep quiet. The person with the highest status in the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was the clan leader, Yizhao. Under him were the 5 elders, Gong, Shang, Jiao, Ji, and Yu, who were in charge of the clan. But in fact, the ones with the most power were still Yi Gong and Yi Shang. The people in the clan were secretly divided into 2 factions, and they had been fighting openly and secretly for a long time. Now, they were at odds again. The 3 elders had already chosen their own sides, but in front of the patriarch, they would still restrain themselves a little. As a result, it became a private argument between the 2 of them. The atmosphere in the hall was somewhat cold. After pausing for a moment, Yi Zhao said calmly, "That human's life isn't important. Let's take a look at the child's potential first." As the clan leader, Yi Zhao had the highest status in the clan, and his words carried the most weight. Since he had expressed his attitude so straightforwardly, the others naturally couldn't say anything more. They continued to look at the ball of light. At the same time, outside the Phoenix Shrine, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan had already gathered and were waiting curiously. They already knew that a Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix, who had contracted with the human race, would return today. It had been several hundred years since something like this had happened in the clan, so it was inevitable that everyone would find it novel. Even though he was unable to enter the Hall of Gods to take a look at the situation, he could still wait outside to receive news as soon as possible. Everyone was discussing something in low voices as they waited. "Hey, have you guys heard? I heard that the Crimson Gold Celestial Phoenix broke through from the 9-colored Heavenly Pheasant." "Really? That's really rare. The 9-colored Heavenly Pheasant seems to be only a 9th-grade fiend. Even so, it could still break through to become an ancient divine fiend. TSK. I wonder how strong it is now. If there's a chance, I'd like to see how different it is from us." Suddenly, a cold voice was heard. "It's just a lowly existence that was lucky enough to cross that threshold. What's there to be curious about?" The surroundings instantly quieted down, and they all looked at the person who spoke. It was a man who looked to be in his 20s. He was tall and straight, and his facial features were grave and stern. After a moment, someone laughed. "Iran, it seems like you don't think highly of that newcomer." Iran frowned slightly, seemingly dissatisfied with the words. "It hasn't officially returned to the clan, so how can it be called newcomer? Perhaps it and its despicable master can't even cross the skyless ocean domain." Wanted to spar with the other party now. Wasn't he thinking too highly of it? If you have the time, you might as well go back and cultivate properly to improve your strength. Another laugh came from the other side. Then why don't you go back? Wasting time here for no reason? The corner of Iran's mouth twitched, and there was a trace of condescending arrogance in his tone. "I'm here to wait for Grand Elder." This time, no one spoke anymore. Who didn't know that Iran was Grand Elder Gong's favorite disciple and had always been highly regarded, especially when the centennial ancestral worship ceremony was about to begin soon. The most important thing in the ancestral worship ceremony was to choose the young lord. Iran was an outstanding figure among the younger generation, and he was definitely a popular candidate this time. It was said that Gong had been undergoing special training for him during this period of time, and his strength had also improved greatly. He was determined to obtain the position of the young lord. Such an Iran naturally wouldn't care about other people and things. Some people secretly exchanged glances with different expressions. He hasn't become the young lord yet, and he's already so arrogant. I'm afraid he'll be even more incredible in the future. It's all because he's so talented and has Grand Elder's special training. There's no point in being envious. Maybe this young lord position won't be his in the end. Let's see how he'll react when he loses all his face. Cough. Although I don't really like him, I have to admit that there's almost no one in the same generation in the clan who can compete with him, right? I heard that Xian has been cultivating with Second Elder recently, but he's young and hasn't cultivated as long as he ran. I'm afraid he won't be able to compete with him. Just let him do whatever he wants. In the future, there'll be someone who can deal with him and let him know how powerful he is. Besides, there's still some time before the ancestral worship ceremony. I'm more interested in that newcomer now. Sigh, I wonder what kind of person its master is, to be able to make it follow so loyally. Even if it wasn't a crimson gold heavenly phoenix before, it would still follow this master. But after breaking through, it wouldn't not understand that this was a big taboo. Not only did it not fall out, but it was also so protective of this master. It's really curious. Skyless ocean. The ice bridge stretched forward in a straight line, as if there was no end. Chu Luiwe walked on it step by step. The power in her body was being consumed rapidly. Even with Dumpling's help, she could endure the burning flames under the ice. But the further she went, the stronger the invisible pressure became. Her whole body was bearing this terrifying pressure. Every inch of her muscles, bones, blood, and flesh felt like it was being crushed by something heavy. Gradually, her legs began to tremble slightly, and every step she took became incomparably difficult. The surrounding waves rolled, and white waves swept over. At a certain moment, Chu Luiwe's knees finally gave way, and she knelt on the ice. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1563. Clang. A cold glint flashed in Chu Luiwe's hand, and Scarlet Heaven's sword stabbed into the ice. A crack quickly spread out. Dumpling followed her worriedly, wanting to help. Chu Luiwe shook her head lightly. She held Scarlet Heaven's sword tightly and slowly stood up. The other party was testing Dumpling and her. If she wanted to talk to the other party as equals, she had to overcome this. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be able to enter the other party's eyes, let alone talk about other things. She took a deep breath and looked forward. The sea was boundless. No one knew where the ice bridge led to or how long it would take. Chu Luiwe pulled out Scarlet Heaven's sword and continued forward. With Scarlet Heaven's sword as a crutch, a crack would appear on the ice bridge with every step she took. However, no matter how the surrounding waves surged, the ice bridge remained as stable as before. Tuanzi was right behind her, following her step by step. Just like that, the man and the beast walked forward slowly and with great difficulty. That Shangguanyu is quite capable, if I'm not wrong. The sword in her hand seems to be the venerable One Divine weapon mentioned before. In the Phoenix Shrine, Elder Yishang could not help but ask when he saw that the slender figure within the ball of light was still advancing forward. I heard that she has many treasures on her. Even the heavenly square cauldron, one of the 10 great divine weapons, has recognized her as its master. Other things aside, she's quite wealthy. Although the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan didn't interact much with the outside world, it didn't mean that they were uninformed. On the contrary, they were often the first to know about many things in the Divine Ruins world. Elder Yishang rubbed his chin. It seems that the great Phoenix Dragon's corpse was hidden in there by her, so it was not discovered by that group of old things. Elder EU couldn't help but laugh. Huh, it's funny talking about this. Shangguanyu used the 2 wing bones from the corpse to reconstruct the body of her contracted magical beast, the legendary 3-eyed eagle. Until now, the corpse is still incomplete, right? The 2 ancient divine beast clans had always been in a state of competition. Naturally, they couldn't help but laugh when they heard this news. Oomph. Not only did she contract with a human, but she also worked with a mere legendary 3-eyed eagle. How embarrassing. What's so funny about this? Elder Yi Gong reprimanded with a cold face. Elder Yu's laughter stopped abruptly, and he looked embarrassed. Legendary 3-eyed eagle's identity isn't ordinary. It seems to be an eagle master. Speaking of which, its status isn't low. In this world, she's the legendary Great Phoenix Dragon's corpse. Elder, said EUUs. Elder Yishang had an indifferent expression. As he spoke, he even took a glance at Elder EU. Although the 5 elders had similar status on the surface, the age gap between them wasn't small. EU was the youngest of the 5th elders. Compared to the first elder Yi Gong, he was almost 700 years younger. In addition, he had a jumpy personality and sometimes spoke too bluntly. Elder EU shrunk his neck. Actually, what he said was the truth. He didn't believe that these people wouldn't secretly laugh at him if they knew about this. Just this point alone was enough to scare people. After all, even their Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan wouldn't do this. Suddenly, he looked at the huge ball of light. His gaze froze, and he couldn't hide the surprise in his eyes. She seems to be coming over. Chulua walked step by step very slowly, but she didn't stop. After an unknown period of time, she gradually realized that the surrounding waves had calmed down, and that heavy pressure suddenly disappeared at a certain moment. A bright golden light suddenly shone from the front. This light was a little dazzling. Chulua subconsciously tilted her face and raised her hand to cover her eyes. After waiting for a while, she gradually adapted to the light and looked forward. A transparent barrier that was completely golden in color had unknowingly appeared from under the water. At this moment, it covered the surface of the sea and was only a few steps away from her. The barrier was semicircular. At a glance, it looked like a huge dome that covered the entire sea. Although it was transparent, she couldn't see anything inside. She could only vaguely see layers of shadows that were like undulating mountains. In front of her, above the barrier, several streams of light flickered and formed a flame pattern. Chulua's heart trembled. That's Phoenix God Mountain? Just coming directly. That vicissitude and distant voice finally sounded again. Compared to before, this voice sounded much closer, as if it was right next to her ear. Chulua pursed her lips. This barrier obviously wasn't that easy to enter. But since the other party had made such a request, she could only do as he said. Chulua's gaze was fixed on the barrier. At a glance, there was nothing special about it. Even the power of suppression had quietly disappeared. It was as if she could easily step in by lifting her foot. However, just as she was about to step forward, Dumpling suddenly rushed over. It directly blocked in front of Chulua and stared at the barrier vigilantly. It was as if there was something terrifying and hostile on it. Chulua's brows twitched slightly. Dumpling would only reveal this state when it was extremely dangerous. Dumpling? Chulua called out to it. Dumpling turned around and shook its head frantically. Obviously, it didn't want her to take the risk. She smiled and gently patted Dumpling's wings. Then let's go in together? Since they were already here, they couldn't just go back. Dumpling hesitated for a long time before finally taking half a step back hesitantly. Chulua looked at the barrier again. In the next moment, her expression froze as she raised her hand and reached forward. Just as her slender fingers touched the barrier, Chulua suddenly heard a roar. Immediately after, it was as if an extremely sharp blade had sliced through her fingertips. Her heart skipped a beat. She almost subconsciously wanted to withdraw her hand. However, just as her wrist moved, she thought of Dumpling beside her. She had to go in. Chulua calmed down and gritted her teeth as she continued forward. An intense pain quickly came from her palm. From the outside, she had only reached her hand into the transparent reddish-gold barrier. Everything was calm, but in reality, she was suffering an indescribable and terrifying pain. Chulua's hand began to tremble uncontrollably. She almost suspected that if she passed through this barrier, her entire body would be crushed into powder. At this moment, Dumpling had already entered more than half of its body. Sensing that something was wrong with Chulua, it turned around and saw Chulua's painful expression. It was shocked and angry as it flapped its wings on the barrier. In the next moment, the barrier rippled like water and quietly opened. Dumpling took the opportunity to bite Chulua's sleeve and pulled her in. At the same time, the expressions of several people in the Phoenix Shrine changed. It opened the barrier. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1564. The one who shouted was Eldery Gong. Although the other elders didn't say anything, their faces were all filled with shock. Even Yi Zhao's eyes suddenly became deep and unfathomable. They couldn't be blamed for having such a big reaction. It was just that this scene was too shocking. One had to know that the barrier had been in place since the birth of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Only people with the clan's bloodline could pass through the barrier safely. Without permission, outsiders would have to go through the painful torture of being skinned and tendons pulled out if they wanted to enter. It was extremely difficult. This was why Chu Luiwe was in so much pain when she wanted to enter just now. This was an obstacle that they had purposely set up. This move wouldn't take her life, and it wouldn't even leave any scars on her body. However, the pain was incomparably real, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to bear it. It was also another form of punishment. However, they didn't expect that just as Chu Luiwe extended half of her hand, Dumpling directly opened the barrier from inside and forcefully dragged her in. In the academy, only the clan leader and the 5 elders could open the barrier on their own. Now that Dumpling opened the barrier without saying anything, how could they not be shocked? After a long while, Yi Zhao slowly spoke. A crimson gold sky phoenix with the purest bloodline power can also open the barrier. His voice was very calm, but it was no different from a sudden clap of thunder in their ears. The purest bloodline power? A crimson gold sky phoenix that broke through from a 9-colored heavenly pheasant? How is this possible? Even Elder EU, who thought highly of Chu Lua previously, was dumbfounded. He knew that this girl wasn't simple. She could hide the great phoenix dragon's corpse, use its wing bone to reconstruct the body of her contracted fiend beast, and even retreat unscathed from Mao Yao's attack. How could someone who could do these things be an ordinary person? That crimson gold sky phoenix had been following her all along, and its potential and talent should be quite good. However, he never expected that this crimson gold sky phoenix would open the barrier as soon as it arrived. The entire phoenix shrine fell into a deathly silence, because other than this explanation, they couldn't find a second possibility. After a while, Elder Yishang spoke with a serious expression. There hasn't been a single person with the purest bloodline power in the clan in 1,000 years. If this is the real one, then it's a great fortune for our clan. Impossible. Some sharp retorts were heard. Elder Yi Gong's expression was extremely ugly. He knew all too well what the purest bloodline power meant. It's only a 9-colored heavenly pheasant. It's already extremely lucky to be able to break through and become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. How can he possess the purest bloodline power? There were so many geniuses in the clan, but even Iran, who was the most outstanding in recent years, had not reached this level. How could it be possible for a lowly existence from the outside world? This was the biggest joke in the world. Yi Zhao narrowed his eyes slightly. The depth of his eyes was unfathomable. Whether it is or not, we will know when it comes. Chu Luiwe only saw a golden light flash before his eyes, and then a vast expanse of white. After a while, she gradually saw the scene in front of her clearly. What came toward her was a furry head. There was also a pair of big round eyes. Chu Luiwe was stunned. Dumpling? She suddenly thought of something and turned her head to look. A crimson gold barrier was flickering quietly behind them. It came in. Chu Luiwe opened her mouth. Dumpling, you dragged me in just now? Dumpling nodded happily. Chu Luiwe raised her hand stiffly and muttered in disbelief. This barrier. You opened it? Dumpling blinked. Of course it was her. Who else could it be? Seeing that Chu Luiwe seemed to be in disbelief, Dumpling raised its wings and waved gently. Psst! An extremely soft sound was heard. In the next moment, Chu Luiwe saw that the golden barrier had indeed cracked open from the middle. Looking out from the crack, she could see the flickering ice bridge and the blue sea surface. Chu Luiwe's breathing stagnated, and her mind went blank for a moment. Even though she had always been unparalleled in intelligence, when she saw this scene, she was also stunned for a moment. Could it be? This barrier can be controlled by the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan at will? But this seems a little too casual. Whoosh! Dumpling waved its wings again. The barrier quickly returned to its original state. The golden light was shining, clear and clear. It was exactly the same as what she saw at the beginning. Chu Luiwe looked at Dumpling suspiciously. Dumpling also tilted her head and looked at it. Is it fun? This thing doesn't seem as scary as I imagined. Chu Luiwe pondered for a moment. Try again. Can you still open it? Gee, Hearing this, Dumpling immediately did as she was told. With a light flap of its wings, another crack immediately appeared on the barrier. Dumpling rolled its eyes, and the barrier began to return to its original state. Then, it moved again, and a second crack appeared next to it. With its movements, the barrier opened and closed, and a stream of light overflowed. Dumpling looked at Chu Luiwe happily and stretched its head forward. Is it beautiful? I want to be caressed. Chu Luiwe took a deep breath, stretched out her hands stiffly, and gently patted Dumpling. After thinking for a moment, she praised from the bottom of her heart. Dumpling, you're really amazing. Dumpling narrowed its eyes in satisfaction. At the same time, in the Phoenix Shrine, the faces of several people turned green. Digression. Continue at 6 p.m. Today is the last day. Everyone, please remember to vote in time. Monthly votes and stars of recommendation tickets will also be verified as soon as possible. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1565. If it was said that the first time Dumpling opened the barrier, it could be said that it was a coincidence. But now, seeing this scene, the few people in the hall couldn't say that no matter what. If even this couldn't be considered as the purest bloodline power, Elder EU tried to calm himself down, but he still couldn't suppress it after trying a few times. He gasped. This bloodline power is definitely at the top of the younger generation, isn't it? His voice wasn't loud, but the others heard it clearly. Hearing this, they all had complicated expressions. Not just the younger generation. Even a few of them might not be able to control the barrier so easily and freely. This Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix was obviously still very young, but it had such ability. Other than the word talent, they couldn't think of any other words to describe it. This is simply nonsense. What does it think the barrier of the clan is? How dare it play such a trick? How disrespectful. Elder E Gong choked for a long time and finally found a reprimand with great difficulty. The others looked at each other. Play a trick? That's because it has the ability. They also wanted to do that, but they didn't have the talent. As for the so-called disrespect, that Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix probably didn't know what the barrier meant. It just treated it as an interesting toy. How is it disrespectful? After Elder E Gong said that sentence, he actually regretted it in his heart. If it were other people, it would be fine. But at this time, standing in the hall were the few people with the most noble status in the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. No one knew better than them what everything that happened just now meant. The two sentences, he said, were actually a little ridiculous. But he was too anxious. The ancestral worship ceremony was imminent. He had already prepared everything for Iran. When the time came, he would smoothly take the position. But at this time, such a talented Chung Yaojin suddenly appeared out of nowhere. There were too many variables. How could he not be worried? If it was an ordinary one with talent, it would be fine. But this one clearly had the purest bloodline power that only appeared once in 1,000 years. This was an absolute suppression. If it wasn't handled well, all his efforts in the past years would be in vain. Elder Yishang suddenly raised his eyelids, glanced at him, and said with a faint smile, "Fortunately, I didn't kill them directly at the beginning. The purest bloodline was extremely precious. It would be a great loss to our Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan." Elder Egong's expression turned even uglier. Unfortunately, these were all true, and he didn't even have the right to refute. Looks like he's a good seedling. After a long period of silence, Yi Zhao finally spoke. He stood at the very front with his back facing them, so no one could see the expression on his face. She couldn't tell anything from his voice and emphasis. Although it had formed a contract with a human before, this bloodline is hard to come by. When it breaks the contract with that human, I'll just have to teach it properly. With that, he waved his sleeve. The huge ball of light quietly transformed into several streams of light and disappeared. Tuanzi was beside the enchantment, having a lot of fun. Before coming in, it had an intuition that the barrier was very dangerous, so it didn't want Chu Luiwe to take the risk. However, he didn't expect it to enter so easily. Moreover, after entering, The barrier seemed to have undergone a subtle change. The feeling of danger disappeared and was replaced by an indescribable sense of intimacy. Not only was it not worried, but it also became more and more addicted to playing. Chu Liyue watched from the side and rubbed the space between her eyebrows. Although she didn't know the exact situation, but as the barrier to enter and exit the Divine Phoenix Mountain, it was obvious that it couldn't be opened and closed so easily. The other party had asked them to come over this time with the intention of reprimanding and testing them. Obviously, they wouldn't joke about such a thing. Then, there was only one possibility left. Dumpling was indeed extraordinary. She had never thought of this before. After all, she didn't expect Dumpling to be able to break through from a 9-colored heavenly pheasant to a crimson gold sky phoenix. Now that she saw this scene, she felt even more confident. She looked up ahead. This was a huge space enveloped by a crimson gold barrier. At a glance, it was boundless. Mountain ranges overlapped one another, and the mountains stretched on endlessly, lush and verdant. Thick ancient trees stood in a forest. Each of them seemed to have an extremely long history, and it would take several people to wrap their arms around them. The canopy overturned the sky, and the branches and leaves were lush. The energy of heaven and earth was rich. As long as one took a deep breath, they would feel relaxed and happy. It was a scene full of vitality. Only the tallest mountain in the middle had no flowers or trees. It was completely char-black, as if it had been burned by flames. The moment Chu Liyue saw that mountain, she immediately sensed that it must be the real destination of this trip. She narrowed her eyes slightly and looked at the top. A majestic palace stood on top of it. Even from such a distance, she could still feel its solemn atmosphere. The moment she looked over, there seemed to be a gaze from afar from the hall and landed on her with incomparable precision. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. She subconsciously became vigilant. All the muscles in her body tensed up. Dumpling seemed to have sensed something as well. She moved closer to her and looked over. In the next moment, the ground under Chu Liyue's feet suddenly shook. She lowered her head to take a look. Before she could react, she immediately felt that the world was spinning. Then, her entire body seemed to be pulled hard by some force. Her surroundings were suddenly plunged into darkness. Fortunately, this feeling did not last for too long. After a while, Chu Liyue felt that her feet were on solid ground. The darkness in front of her quickly disappeared. She narrowed her eyes. Before she could see the surroundings clearly, her body was already wrapped in a layer of cold air. She calmed herself down and immediately looked around. This was a hall. It was magnificent, simple, and solemn. The ground under her feet was covered with clean and smooth black jade stones, which clearly reflected her figure. There were scattered spots of pure gold light, like stars in the sky, bright and dazzling. She was stunned for a moment and looked up slightly. Above her was a huge original dome. It was carved out of a whole piece of clear white jade stone. There were countless stars drawn on it, shining brightly. The stars on the ground were actually reflections of the dome. Standing here, it was really easy to get a sense of illusion. However, Chu Liyue did not put too much thought into it. She quickly retracted her gaze and looked straight ahead. In the hall, there were 6 people on the steps, looking down at her from above. The person in front was an old man in a white robe. He had a square face, and he was majestic without being angry. The most eye-catching thing was that his hair was pure gold. Almost instantly, Chu Liyue reacted to the situation. This person must be the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1566. When Chu Liyue looked at Yi Zhao was also sizing her up. His eyes were very indifferent, but they were very penetrating. With a clear glance, Chu Liyue felt as if she was about to be completely seen through. However, Yi Zhao's gaze didn't stay on her for too long. After a few glances, he turned to look at Tuanzi, who was beside him. It was only now that a faint ripple appeared in his bottomless eyes. A mere human wasn't worth his time. This crimson gold sky phoenix was the most important thing to them. You still haven't transformed into a human form? He spoke in a deep voice. His voice was as deep as a bell, but it also carried a sense of vastness and distance. Chu Luiwe was shocked, as expected of the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. This kind of pressure was indeed something she had never seen before in her life. Even Mao Yao, who she had seen before, couldn't be compared to him. Dumpling knew that he was asking her, but she didn't want to answer. The way he looked at her master just now was as if he was looking at an object, which really made her angry. Dumpling ignored him and lowered her head to rub Chu Luiyue's face, looking as if she didn't want to talk. The atmosphere was cold and silent. The clan leader is asking you a question. What kind of attitude is this? The anger in Elder Yi Gong's heart rose again, and he directly spoke in a cold voice. Dumpling glanced at him and then retracted her gaze, still very uncooperative. In fact, after breaking through to become a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix, she automatically gained a part of the relevant memories. From then on, she knew that she should come back. It was just that there were too many troubles in between, so she didn't have the time. But in her heart, she didn't forget this matter. In fact, it had been filled with anticipation and curiosity for a long time before this. Unfortunately, the other party's recent series of actions directly made her lose all her good impression of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Anyone who made things difficult for her master wasn't a good person. She didn't want to go back to this kind of place. Chu Luiyue gently rubbed Dumpling's head to calm her down, then took half a step forward and bowed respectfully to the few people. Shangguan Yu greets seniors. It didn't matter that they didn't take her seriously. She came this time to solve Dumpling's problem, so naturally, she had to bring 120% sincerity. Anyway, it wasn't the first time someone had looked down on her, so it didn't matter. Dumpling broke through to become a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix, so she hasn't transformed to human form yet. Chu Luiyue had specially asked Tuanzi about this before. Only when one's strength and age reached a certain level would it be able to successfully transform into a human form. As now, she could only appear in her true form. Yigong knitted his brows and looked at Chu Luiyue with a knife-like gaze. Did he ask you? This is to S2's yup. Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly, as if she didn't mind the other party's words. Only her black, jade-like eyes were clear and clean, glowing with a clear light, firm and persistent. Dumpling is my contracted divine beast. Our minds are connected. Since she doesn't want to speak, why can't I speak on her behalf? These words sounded like blatant flaunting to the people on the other side. Contracted divine beast. Was she worthy? Elder Yu was about to say something when he saw Yi Zhao raise his hand. Only then did he swallow the rest of his words. Only the gaze he used to look at Chu Luiyue was still very unfriendly. Yi Zhao's expression was indifferent. Her voice was calm, but it carried a noble and tyrannical aura that made people not dare to disobey. I don't want to hear these words a second time. Phoenix God Mountain is my race's land. Human race has never been allowed to enter as they wish. I'll let you in today to hear your apology and to let you break the contract with it. Yi Zhao lifted her chin slightly. Originally, you wanted to leave half of your life here, but seeing that it has followed you for so many years, I won't pursue this crime. As long as you complete these two things, you can leave safely. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly after hearing this. On the other hand, Dumpling's emotions suddenly became agitated. She glared angrily at Yi Zhao. Not breaking the contract. Definitely not. It had become strong with great difficulty and could stay by her side to protect her. How could it leave just like that? Yi Zhao's expression finally became serious. She looked at Dumpling with dignity. Don't forget, you are a Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix. Don't tell me you want to fight against your own race for her. Following a human around and trying to curry favor with her. What kind of appearance was that? Boom. Dumpling's body suddenly burned with golden flames. So what if she was a Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix? These so-called race members had nothing to do with her. Why should she break the contract with her master for them? When she was injured, Chu Luiyue was the one who helped her heal. When she was on the verge of death, Chu Luiwe was the one who helped her block the heavenly tribulation. She gave her life, so she should follow her in life and death. Never betray her. Rebel. Really rebel. Elder Yi Gong sneered and pointed at Dumpling. Clan leader, you saw it. Now, she wants to go against our entire race for this human. Such a rebellious bloodline is really unacceptable. If she let it stay, wouldn't she be burying an unpredictable bomb for herself? Dumpling. Chu Luiwe patted her wings gently. That's your clan leader and elder. Don't be so rude. Dumpling stared at her with wide eyes. Could it be that she was also on their side? She didn't want it anymore? Sensing Dumpling's thoughts, Chu Luiwe couldn't help but laugh. Her voice was gentle but exceptionally firm. Don't worry. I brought you here and will definitely bring you back. As she spoke, she looked up at Yi Zhao and said word by word. This time, I actually have two things to do. First, I have to visit you and apologize. Dumpling did suffer a lot when she was with me previously. I feel guilty, so I naturally have to come and apologize to you. Second, let Dumpling return to the clan and get the identity she deserves. Then, continue to follow me home. No matter what, I won't break the contract with Dumpling. Even if you personally stop me, I, Shang Wanyu, will not change this decision. Digression. The maximum number of monthly votes is now 27. Dear fans of the recommendation tickets, come and verify it. Mobile users can browse and read at 12 o'clock tomorrow. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1567. After Chu Luiwe spoke, the Phoenix Shrine fell into a short silence. Everyone, including Yi Zhao, started to look at her in a different light. They didn't expect this slender woman, who looked less than 20 years old, to have such courage. Do you know what you're saying? After pausing for a moment, Yi Zhao narrowed his eyes and said indifferently. Chu Luiwe's lips curved up slightly. Of course, I came here with full sincerity. I know that the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan has never made a contract with humans, but when Dumpling made a contract with me, it was still a 9-colored heavenly pheasant. This way, it's not against the clan rules, but now that it's a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix, it has to follow the rules here. Yi Zhao interrupted Chu Luiwe with a cold expression and dark waves in his eyes. Shang Wanyu, I thought you were a smart person. As soon as he said that, an oppressive aura suddenly descended in the hall. Chu Luiwe felt a weight on her shoulders, as if a mountain was pressing down on her. She straightened her back and raised her chin slightly, as if she didn't hear the other party's threat. Or maybe she understood but didn't want to care. Dumpling and I have a deep bond. If we break the contract now, it will definitely hurt it. That's not something you need to worry about. Yi Zhao's patience was about to run out. Letting Shang Wanyu enter the Phoenix Shrine and letting her live was already the biggest concession he could give. But now, she actually dared to think about continuing the contract openly. In his opinion, it was simply wishful thinking. Dumpling had a rare bloodline power. The effect of breaking the contract was almost negligible. With such talent and potential, there was no need to worry about those problems. I'll ask you one last chance. Take back all your words. This was for Dumpling's sake. If it was anyone else, he would have already chased them out. Chu Luiwe didn't show any fear or panic on her face. Instead, she took a step forward with a determined expression. Clan leader Yi Zhao, I've already made my purpose of coming here today very clear. I know that this is something difficult for you and the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan to accept. But this contract is ultimately between Dumpling and me, isn't it? Yi Zhao's eyes turned cold. He really didn't expect that a human exalted god would dare to be so arrogant in front of him. Boom! Suddenly, a crimson gold flame burned in his deep eyes. The space around Chu Luiwe suddenly locked her in place and crazily twisted. Her chest, there was the smell of blood instantly. In the blink of an eye, it was as if countless ropes had trapped her and were tightening around her. Every inch of her flesh felt like it was being torn apart. She clenched her hands into fists. She wanted to break free, but she found that she couldn't move at all. At this moment, She was like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Yi Zhao was the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. He didn't even take human exalted gods seriously. Wasn't it a piece of cake for him to deal with Chu Luiyue? He didn't even need to do anything. Just one look was enough to take Chu Luiyue's life. Chu Luiyue's face quickly turned pale. Blood seeped out of the corner of her mouth. There was a terrifying force that kept forcing her to kneel. Her legs started to tremble. Gradually, her entire body started to tremble uncontrollably. Dumpling suddenly rushed over. She flapped her wings. A crimson golden flame suddenly streaked across the sky. Chu Luiyue vaguely heard a slight cracking sound. In the next moment, she suddenly felt the power around her relax a little. She looked up. Dumpling was standing in front of her. Her body was burning with flames, and she was looking at Yi Zhao with fighting spirit. That pair of clear and pure eyes had already been dyed with a trace of scarlet at this moment. Yi Zhao was shocked. Dumpling could actually break his attack. Although she couldn't completely block it, it was already very rare for her to be able to do so. One had to know that she had just broken through to the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix realm a few months ago. The expressions of the elders behind him also changed slightly. Although they had already confirmed that Dumpling was of the purest bloodline, the talent and strength she displayed every time shocked them. It had been too long since a purest bloodline appeared in the clan. Even they hadn't seen it with their own eyes. They had only glimpsed a little from the clan's history. Now, it seemed that the purest bloodline was even more shocking than they had expected at this moment. Chu Luiyue finally had the chance to speak. Dumpling, come back. Dumpling didn't move. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Sensing her reaction, Dumpling reluctantly turned around. Almost in the blink of an eye, the fierce fighting spirit in her eyes quickly faded, and it was replaced by grievance. They bullied her, so what if she attacked? At most, she could just leave. Dumpling felt wronged and blamed herself. If it wasn't for her, why would she have to suffer and be humiliated like this here? Chu Luiyue smiled slightly and patted her shoulder lightly. This time, she brought Dumpling back to let Dumpling acknowledge her ancestors, not to let her break off relations with the clan. She could see that although the other party wasn't very polite to her, she did think highly of Dumpling. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be able to enter this hall. She didn't care what they thought of her, but she didn't want Dumpling to be lonely forever. She knew that she had the bloodline of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Deep in her bones, she still wanted to come back. Be good. Chu Luiyue urged her again. Dumpling hesitated for a moment before turning back into a small one. It flew back to her shoulder and nestled its head in her armpit. Chu Luiyue rubbed its head and looked up at Yi Zhao and the others again. As expected, the expressions of those people were very interesting. Dumpling has been spoiled by me since it was young. Its temper is very bad. Seniors, please don't be calculated with it. Chu Luiyue's words were very natural. However, Yi Zhao and the others felt stifled in their hearts. It was clearly the bloodline of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Why did she say that they were outsiders and that Shangwan Yu was the closest existence to it? Of course, judging from Dumpling's series of reactions, this was indeed the case. Actually, I really didn't have any other thoughts this time. Unfortunately, the seniors don't seem to trust me very much. Chu Luiyue's face showed a trace of regret. Clan leader, Yi Zhao, I believe you can see that Dumpling and I have depended on each other for many years. It is impossible for us to be separated. If you really insist on breaking the contract between us, then you could just kill me. She smiled and took a step forward. It's up to you to kill or torture. Yi Zhao coldly rebuked. How dare you threaten me? If he killed her, Dumpling as a contracted mythological beast would definitely not be able to live. Chu Luiyue chuckled and nodded. There was a hint of roguishness in her eyes. Yes, mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1568. So what if I'm threatening you? The reason why she dared to come alone and negotiate with them about Dumpling's fate was because she had this trump card. Dumpling was her contracted mythological beast. If she died, Dumpling would also die. The other party was powerful and superior. She could only rely on herself. For this, she was willing to bet her life. To be honest, Dumpling and I have known each other since we were young. We've gone through life and death together countless times. We've long been family. If it can't continue to be with me in the future, I'll definitely be very sad. Chu Luiyue touched Dumpling with a sad expression. At that time, maybe one day it'll be too sad and directly die. When Dumpling heard this, it immediately raised its head and crazily rubbed against her face. If she died, it wouldn't live either. You. Yizhao finally couldn't hold back and pointed at Chu Luiyue. Because of anger, his fingers were trembling. How dare you? She actually dared to threaten with death. Wasn't this acting like a hooligan? This woman was so shameless. Yizhao had lived for thousands of years and had always been expressionless. At this time, he was about to go crazy from anger because of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue bowed slightly and said modestly, "You're too polite." Anyway, she came today to openly let Dumpling continue to follow her. Not agree? Then she could only show her trump card and fight to the death. At first, she wanted to talk nicely, but the other party didn't give her a chance. Then she didn't have to give them face anymore. She had nothing to lose. She only had this one life left as a bargaining chip, so she might as well just lay it out on the table. In fact, there was another important reason why Chu Luiyue dared to do this. She was sure that the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan valued Dumpling very much and wouldn't be willing to let it die. Ever since she received the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's letter, she vaguely felt that something was wrong. After coming here, she finally understood where that strange feeling came from. With the strength of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, they wouldn't take her seriously at all. In their eyes, a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix that had already contracted with a human should also have a stain. Even if they were of the same race, they wouldn't particularly care about it. Instead, they would be full of disgust. But they actually wrote a letter to Nan Suhui, asking her to personally apologize and terminate the contract with Dumpling. Although that letter seemed to be high and mighty, Chu Luiyue knew that the fact that they were willing to write this letter in itself already explained too many things. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan wanted Dumpling to return. After arriving here and seeing that Tuanzi had opened the enchantment of the Divine Phoenix Mountain so easily, she felt even more confident. She had already said such harsh words, but they still didn't directly kill it. Wasn't it because of Dumpling? So, even if they hated her to the core, they would definitely not take her life. Shang Wanyu, you've gone too far. Elder Yigong couldn't help but growl. He had never seen someone so arrogant in front of them. Chu Luiyue raised her brows slightly. I've already said what I should say. Instead of scolding and reprimanding me here, why don't you seriously consider my suggestion just now? She had already done it, so why would she be afraid of others talking about it? Yigong's chest choked, and his face turned red and white. Chu Luiyue couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. She turned her gaze slightly and looked at Yizhao. This was the one who had the most right to speak. With a gentle smile, she added, "Oh, clan leader Yizhao, if you don't remember what I said just now, I can repeat it for you." Yizhao's eyelids twitched violently. "Enough. I'm not that old and dim-sighted." Chu Luiyue obediently kept quiet and patted Dumpling's but twice to comfort her. TSK, Dumpling was scared out of her wits. The hall was cold and silent. Both sides were in a stalemate. After a long while, Chu Luiyue tucked her loose hair behind her ear and smiled. "Clan leader Yizhao, can we renegotiate now?" Time passed slowly. The people gathered outside the Phoenix Temple gradually became restless. That Shang Wanyu has been in there for a long time, right? Why hasn't there been any movement until now? They were outside and couldn't see what was going on inside. However, when Chu Luiyue passed through the barrier and was directly brought into the Phoenix Temple, the heaven and earth energy within the Phoenix Temple fluctuated. Therefore, although they didn't see anyone or that crimson gold heavenly phoenix, they knew that they were already here. Yes, didn't you say that you just want that woman to come over and apologize and then cancel the contract? This shouldn't take long, right? It's hard to say. Who knows how long it will take to cancel the contract? We don't have much experience in this in the past, right? With the clan leader and a few elders here, it shouldn't be too difficult. Is there something else? Or is it that Shangguan Yu doesn't agree? TSK. So what if she doesn't agree? Don't tell me that he can really stir up some waves. I heard that Shangguan Yu is quite capable. Previously, Great Phoenix Dragon Clan's Mao Yao chased her all the way to Lingxiao College, but he was defeated in the end. I reckon that this woman really does have some skills. Mao Yao was too arrogant and didn't check it out, so he suffered a loss. How can the clan leader and elders be the same as him? Besides, that Shangguan Yu is now in our Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's territory. How could a mere human exalted god like her do whatever she wanted in such a huge Phoenix mountain? Yeah, but I heard that the new Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix's bloodline power seems to be quite good. Otherwise, the clan leader wouldn't be willing to spend so much effort to summon it back. That's true. The ancestral worship ceremony is near, and the clan leader is doing this now. Could it be that there's a deeper meaning? Isn't it a little too early to say that? It hasn't been officially tested for talent yet, right? Anyway, everything will be clear when the ancestral worship ceremony arrives. At the side, Iran frowned when he heard that. He lifted his gaze slightly and looked at the Phoenix Temple. It was just a lowly existence that broke through from the nine-colored heavenly pheasant. Why would the clan leader and elders spend so much effort on it? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1569. The atmosphere in the Phoenix Temple became even colder. Yizhao stared coldly at Chu Luiwei and laughed out of anger. Humans are indeed treacherous and cunning. For thousands of years, it had always been hard to change one's nature. Chu Luiwei didn't care about such words at all. If she didn't have some tricks up her sleeve, she would have recognized her long ago. How could she still stand here and talk? So she took it as a compliment for her intelligence. So, she said with a smile, you flatter me. Actually, I'm doing this so that Dumpling can continue to be with me. I know this is hard for you and the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan to accept. So, as long as you're willing to agree not to let us terminate the contract and let Dumpling return to the clan to acknowledge her ancestors, then this junior will definitely go through fire and water to fulfill your request. Chu Yoyue's words were very sincere. This was the main purpose of her trip. Yizhao stared at her for a long time and sneered. If you really want it good, you should terminate the contract automatically. It's a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix, a noble and powerful ancient divine beast. Do you know that you'll be its biggest burden? The strength of a contracted magical beast was closely related to its master. If the master was a good-for-nothing, then even an ancient divine beast's combat strength would be greatly limited. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's average lifespan is thousands of years. If the bloodline power is rich and pure, it's even more unpredictable. However, humans, even the high gods, can only live for a few hundred years. When you die, don't tell me you wanted to die with you. Yizhao looked at Chu Luiwei with undisguised sarcasm. You say it's for its good, but in fact, it's just for your own selfish desires. Every word was like a heavy stone falling down. It was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. After hearing this, the smile on Chu Yue's face gradually disappeared. She narrowed her eyes slightly, then raised her head and asked, "How can you be sure that I will only be a burden to Dumpling?" It was as if a thin layer of frost had covered the woman's elegant and refined face. She emitted a chilling aura that caused one's heart to tremble. It seems that you still don't know me well. In that case, let me formally introduce myself to you. I am Shangguan Yu, the disciple of Nan Su Huai, the dean of Lingxiao College, the descendant of venerable artificer Shangguan Jing, and the consort of Yuntian Tower. Of course, I know that these identities are not worthy of your attention, but you should know what it means to have such a background. Chu Yue's eyes were tinged with coldness and arrogance. That was the pride in his bones, and also the confidence that came from his own strength. I just became a high god. At the same time, I'm already a Xian King teacher and a doctor. Alright, other than that, I'm also a weapon refiner. The Scarlet Heaven Sword's sword soul was personally refined and fused by me. Her tone was calm, and her voice was as clear as jade. At this point, she suddenly smiled. Most importantly, I'm only 17 years old now. Do you really think that I will remain at this level for the rest of my life? Yizhao was momentarily speechless and did not know how to refute. Even if he looked down on the human race, he knew that based on what Shang Wanyu had said, she was definitely one of the best among the human race. After a moment, he finally spoke in a deep voice. All right, since you're so confident in yourself, then I will give you a chance. Digression, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Please verify the star of the monthly votes as soon as possible. Currently, the highest number of votes is 27, and the highest number of votes is 196. It will end soon. In addition, there is a big Lazy building event in the comment section today. It has already been placed at the top. Good luck to everyone. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1570. Yizhao raised his hand and pointed at Dumpling. As long as you can help it transform into a human form within a month, our clan will not pursue this matter any further. From then on, it will follow you to its death. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan will no longer interfere. A deep and resounding voice reverberated throughout the entire Phoenix Shrine. The elders were shocked and looked at Yizhao in disbelief. Could it be that the patriarch had gone mad? He actually agreed to Shang Wanyu's request and made such a bet with her. However, Chu Luiyue smiled and enunciated every word clearly. All right, it's a deal. Creak, the door of the Phoenix Shrine opened slowly. Countless people who were waiting outside perked up and looked up. A tall and burly figure walked out of the shrine slowly. He looked solemn and dignified. It was the clan leader, Yizhao. Behind him, the 5 elders walked out one after another. They were expressionless and indifferent. This disappointed those who wanted to pry a little from their expressions. Even Elder Yu, who was usually carefree, was frowning. The emotions in his eyes were unfathomable. Yizhao stood in the square in front of the shrine and looked down. His eyes were as dignified as lightning, which made people respect him unconsciously. The crowd, which was still a little noisy, suddenly quieted down. Then they bowed together. Greetings, clan leader. Yizhao nodded and looked behind him. Come out. Hearing this, everyone had a blank expression as they looked at each other. The 5 elders were all here. Who was the clan leader calling? Suddenly, someone reacted and couldn't help but widen his eyes slightly. Shang Wanyu. Or is it that Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix? It should be that newcomer, right? As for that, the clan leader has always hated interacting with them. He already gave her face by not chasing her back. Why would he let her appear here? That's true. By the way, don't you think it's strange? He said that he was going to cancel the contract, but why wasn't there any movement inside? Although that fellow had broken through halfway, she was now considered a Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix. Logically speaking, she shouldn't be so calm, right? With the patriarch and several elders around, even if there is a huge commotion, they will be able to suppress it. What's so strange about that? Low murmurs of discussion spread through the crowd. Countless pairs of eyes looked curiously at the entrance of the Phoenix Shrine. There were also some who couldn't help but stick their heads out and look forward with all their might, afraid that they would miss something. A slender and exquisite figure slowly walked out from behind the heavy and solemn door. It was evening. The brilliant afterglow shone on her body, elongating her silhouette, as if dispelling the cold air from the hall. It was a woman. She was wearing a simple and neat red dress with a black jade belt around her waist, which easily outlined her graceful curves. The lines on his body were tall and straight, each appropriate. Her fine black hair was tied up in a simple bun with a black peach blossom hairpin. Under the sunlight, the lifelike peach blossoms were sparkling with ice and snow. In an instant, the clamor from before disappeared. The air seemed to have frozen, and the scene froze. Everyone's expression froze for a moment, as if they hadn't reacted yet. As if sensing these gazes, the woman raised her head. Her neck was exceptionally slender and fair. At this moment, all her hair was tied up, revealing an unbelievably beautiful neckline. Her skin was translucent and fair, like the best mutton fat jade. At this moment, under the sunlight, one could even see the fine hair on her cheeks that glowed with a faint golden light. Her facial features were perfect, and she was extremely beautiful. Her red lips curled up slightly, and her originally cold eyes seemed to be tainted with a warm smile. Everyone was stunned for a moment. After a while, a murmur was heard. "That's a human? Wait, that woman is Shang Yu." Although they also looked like humans on the outside, it was just an illusion. Their aura was undoubtedly that of a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. But this woman who walked out of the Phoenix Shrine was clearly a human. There's actually a human who walked out of there alive. Someone couldn't help but exclaim. They couldn't be blamed for being so shocked. For so many years, the number of humans who came to Phoenix Shrine Mountain could be counted on one hand. Almost none of them were qualified to enter the Phoenix Shrine. But now, not only did this Shang Yu enter, but she also came out unscathed. How could this not be shocking? After all, many people in the clan thought that after the contract was broken, even if the clan leader and the others didn't take her life on the spot, she wouldn't live for long. Signing a contract with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was a great humiliation to them. I heard that this Shang Yu's status in the human race isn't low. The clan leader probably wants to keep her alive so that other humans won't come and bother her, right? Everyone made their own guesses. At the same time, they carefully sized up Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue chose to ignore all these gazes. She walked out of the room with an open mind. Dumpling was squatting on her shoulder, but it buried its head under its wings. It wanted to express its dissatisfaction with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. She coaxed, "Dumpling, they're all looking at you. If you keep acting like this, they might think that you're too timid." Swoosh! Dumpling was suddenly energized. It immediately raised its head, and its black eyes darted around. Who dared to look down on it? After looking around, Dumpling retracted its aura and flapped its wings. But this time, it didn't shrink back. Instead, it looked around from time to time. Chu Luiyue's lips curved into a smile. She and Dumpling were telepathically connected. How could she not know what Dumpling was thinking? It wanted to come back and take a look. It also wanted to know what kind of life its clansmen were living. No matter what, the same blood flowed in their bodies. This power that came from his bloodline naturally made him curious and attached himself to this place. For her, it pretended that it didn't care about all this. It was even prepared to cut ties with everything here forever. But Chu Luiyue couldn't bear to let it do that. At this moment, some gazes finally landed on Dumpling. Is that the legendary Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix? It looks ordinary. There's nothing special about it, right? Didn't you notice that it's still sitting on that human's shoulder? Isn't that special? Iran put his hands behind his back and looked over. With just one look, he frowned. A look of disgust flashed across his eyes. Indecent. At this moment, Yizhao suddenly looked over. Iran, bring Shang Yu and the rest to Fengwang Valley. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1571. It was a simple sentence, but the amount of information it revealed stunned everyone present. Bring them to Fengwang Valley? Fengwang Valley was where all the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenixes rested. It would be normal for the new Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix to go there. But why did it have Shang Yu's name? Iran thought he had heard wrongly and asked hesitantly. Them? Yizhao nodded with an indifferent expression, as if he did not realize that his words had caused a huge uproar. Shang Yu will also stay here for a month. He paused for a moment. Let's arrange for them to stay together for now. Although he could not wait to send Shang Yu away, seeing her and Dumpling together made his eyes hurt. He could not go back on his word since he had already made a promise. As far as that was concerned, it was obvious that it was best for them to live together. There was dead silence around the Phoenix Shrine. No matter how much they thought about it, They never expected to hear such words from the clan leader. Some people subconsciously looked at the people beside them and realized that they were all equally stunned. Didn't he want Shang Wanyu to break the contract? Didn't he ask her to come over to teach her a lesson? Didn't the clan leader hate humans the most? What was going on now? Shang Wanyu came out of the Phoenix Shrine safely and even wanted to stay in Fengwang Valley? Was the clan leader crazy? Of course, no one dared to ask that question. Everyone could only respond with a long silence. Iran, what are you waiting for? Elder EU was the first to speak, and he broke this practically suffocating atmosphere. You are very familiar with Fengwang Valley. Arrange for a quiet place for them, understand? Iran choked and subconsciously looked at Elder Yi Gong beside him. Elder Yi Gong's brows furrowed imperceptibly, but his expression soon returned to normal. Whatever the clan leader asks you to do, just do it. Iran opened his mouth. Yes. With great difficulty, he suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and tried his best to remain calm. For the first time, he looked at Chu Luiwei in the eye. What exactly happened in the Phoenix Shrine just now? Elder Yi Gong had mentioned this matter to him before. At that time, he clearly said that the clan leader planned to let them break the contract directly and give each of them some suffering. But now, why did the wind suddenly change? But in front of so many people, he couldn't ask. Yi Zhao looked at Chu Luiwen differently. Iran is one of the best in the younger generation of the clan, and many things are handled by him. During this period of time, if you have any problems, just look for him directly. Iran frowned. Elder Yi Gong was the first to refute. Patriarch, Iran is currently at the critical juncture of his breakthrough. I'm afraid that he might not be able to deal with these matters in time. The elders had different expressions on their faces. What could possibly happen in this 1 month? Besides, Shang Wanyu had been busy trying to think of a way to help Dumpling break through, so they didn't have time to stir up trouble. That was not what he had said when he was trying to seize power for Iran. Now it's troublesome. On the surface, it sounded nice, but in fact, he just didn't want to waste time and energy on these things. Yi Zhao's expression didn't change. Elder, EU probed. The ancestral worship ceremony is around the corner, and Iran is busy cultivating. It wouldn't be good if he was delayed by other things. Coincidentally, I don't have anything to do during this period of time, so why don't I take charge of everything here? Although he was one of the 5 elders, the important matters had already been divided between Yi Gong and Yi Shang. Only some insignificant matters were left for him to deal with. He was very free. Elder Yi Gong's expression changed. Patriarch, Iran, and I didn't mean that. Yi Zhao ignored him and only glanced at Elder EU and nodded. Then you can take them there. Elder Yi Gong wanted to say something, but hesitated. In the end, he tactfully kept quiet. Chu Luiwei responded and turned to bow to Elder EU with a smile. Then I'll have to trouble Elder EU. Elder EU actually didn't have any ill feelings towards Chu Luiwei. In his opinion, she was indeed quite capable to be able to bring a 9-colored heavenly pheasant all the way to this day. Moreover, from some of the previous things, she was really good at dumpling. Just these were already pretty good. Elder EU raised his chin at her. Follow me. After saying that, he moved and quickly flew in a certain direction. Chu Luiwei was about to move when Dumpling suddenly flew in front of her. She smiled and pulled it back. It's not like I can't go there myself. You just have to stay here. What a joke. In front of so many crimson gold heavenly phoenixes, she stepped on Dumpling's back and flew. Did she have a death wish? When Dumpling heard that, it obediently went back. Chu Luiwei suddenly took a deep breath and moved her feet slightly. She immediately followed Elder EU. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, their figures finally gradually disappeared behind the undulating mountain range. And when their figures really disappeared, the people who stayed on the spot slowly came back to their senses. That Shang Wanyu just stayed here. And with that crimson gold heavenly phoenix, they didn't even cancel the contract? Yi Zhao looked around and said in a deep voice, "What are you all still looking at? The ancestral worship ceremony is about to begin. Are you all ready?" Hearing these words, the crowd dispersed in an instant. The few elders also bid farewell to Yi Zhao and prepared to return to continue preparing for the ancestral worship ceremony. Yi Zhao didn't say anything else and turned to return to the Shrine of Phoenix alone. The lively scene quickly quieted down. Iran couldn't help but run toward Elder Igong. Master, what exactly is going on? Digression. Urging the surrounding activities for the last time, tomorrow at 12 o'clock, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1572. Elder Igong's expression was cold. Follow me. The two of them returned to Elder Igong's residence. After entering the forest and confirming that there was no one else around, Elder Igong gradually slowed down and finally stopped beside a lake. Iran followed behind. Master, Elder Igong turned around and interrupted him. How's your cultivation recently? What can you break through? Iran was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that the first question would be this. After thinking for a moment, he said, I should be able to succeed in half a month. Should? Elder Igong narrowed his eyes and said coldly, There's no should. What I want is definitely. The ancestral worship ceremony is about to begin. Before that, you must break through as soon as possible. Iran was even more confused. His talent had always been at the top of the younger generation. He had always been the most outstanding one. As his master, Elder Igong had always doted on him. He had never spoken to him in such a harsh tone. Iran thought for a moment. His master was clearly fine yesterday. Today, he just went to the Phoenix Shrine and came out with a change of attitude. Could it be that something really happened there? Yes. Don't worry, Master. I will definitely break through before the ancestral worship ceremony. I will definitely not let you down. Iran lowered his head and replied respectfully. Elder Igong put his hands behind his back and stared at him with a heavy gaze. Iran, I'm not asking you this because I'm worried that you'll be disappointed. It's because the ancestral worship ceremony this time is extremely important to you. If you can't get the first place, then the position of young master will not be yours. As he spoke, his voice softened a little. For this day, you have been cultivating diligently all these years and didn't dare to relax at all. I've seen all of this. It's also because of this that I can't let anyone threaten you. Threaten? Iran frowned slightly. Currently, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was not flourishing. He was already the top genius of the younger generation and was basically confident of getting that position. Who else could pose a threat to him? Suddenly, his expression changed as he suddenly realized something. Master, are you talking about? That new Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix is very likely to be a formidable opponent for you. Elder Igong said resolutely. Seeing his confident expression, Iran felt that something was amiss. But it's just something that the nine-colored heavenly pheasant broke through and isn't worth mentioning. Why? On what basis could he compete with him? Elder Igong's face turned ugly as he snorted coldly. Its origin is indeed not much, but its luck is too good, and its bloodline power is extremely strong. If that wasn't the case, do you think that Shangguan Yu would be able to walk out of the Phoenix Shrine unscathed today? Wasn't all because of that Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix. Iran held his breath. He wasn't stupid. He couldn't be any clearer about the weight of Elder Igong's words. To be able to make the Patriarch relent and allow her to stay, its talent, is it really that powerful? Iran couldn't help but mutter. Elder Igong's lips moved, but in the end, he didn't reveal the truth. Before he came out, the Patriarch had repeatedly instructed him not to reveal this news before the ancestral worship ceremony. He could only endure it. In short, its bloodline is definitely not inferior to yours. Although it's still young, it can't be underestimated. You just have to remember, you can't let your guard down. As he spoke, he paused for a moment and comforted Iran. Of course, from the looks of it, it has a fatal flaw. Its contract with Shangguan Yu hasn't been rescinded. Really? Iran looked up with a face full of surprise. The Patriarch had always been a man of his word, but this time, the matters here are more complicated. It's useless for you to know so much now. Elder Igong didn't want to say more. He patted Iran's shoulder and said earnestly, "As long as you can break through as soon as possible and obtain the first place in the ancestral worship ceremony, you don't have to worry about anything else." Iran was full of questions, but seeing that his master didn't seem to want to say anything, he suppressed his emotions and nodded seriously. "Yes." Elder Gong revealed a look of satisfaction. "Very good. Have you comprehended the things that I've taught you before?" Iran said, "There are a few points that I still have doubts about." "Let's hear them." The news that Shangguan Yu was going to stay in Fengwang Valley for a month quickly spread throughout the entire Phoenix Godly Mountain. In an instant, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was in an uproar. All sorts of rumors about this matter also spread rapidly. Many people started to ask around to find out who this Shangguan Yu was. In just half a day, the name Shangguan Yu had become famous in the Phoenix Godly Mountain. However, Chu Liwei didn't care about this at all. She was bringing Dumpling and following Elder Yu to the legendary Fengwang Valley. "Here, this will be your place of residence for the time being." Elder Yu stood in the air and pointed to the front as he chuckled. "This location is a little remote, but most people won't pass by here on their way back. It's quiet." Chu Liwei looked at the golden ball of light 10 steps ahead and smiled as she nodded in thanks. "Thank you so much. Dumpling and I like this place very much." She didn't like noisy places. Moreover, this was someone else's territory. They only had a month, and she hoped that they wouldn't be disturbed. This elder, Yu, seemed to be a good person. Chu Liwei had a good impression of him, and her smile became more sincere. Elder Yu looked at her and then looked at Tuanzi, and then he smiled. Even if he didn't consider Shangguan Yu, he had to find a good place for Dumpling. Pure bloodline. How many years had it been since the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan appeared? This was a treasure. He took a few steps forward and gently covered the ball of light with his hand. Wong! There was a slight vibration. Then, he retracted his hand and looked at Chu Liwei with a smile. "It's good that you like it. Then, I won't disturb you. I've left a trace of my aura on it. If there's any problem, just put your hand on it. I'll rush over as soon as possible." Chu Liwei thanked him again and watched as Elder Yu left. It wasn't until his figure had completely disappeared that she withdrew her gaze and turned to look at the ball of light. The ball of light wasn't big. From the outside, it could only accommodate a dozen people at most. But Chu Liwei knew that there was another space inside. She looked up. There were mountains on both sides, and there was a canyon in the middle. It was Fengwang Valley, and inside there were several similar balls of light floating in the air. Those must be the resting places of the other Crimson Gold Sky Phoenixes. Chu Liwei's lips curved up slightly when she sensed the hidden gazes, and she lightly patted Tuanzi. "Dumpling, let's go." Digression, tweet. Zhao at the beginning of the month, spoiled by the big boss after marriage. Su Shuang is a scumbag. In love after marriage, a two-way crush, a Buddhist big boss versus a delicate and sweet wife. Tangwan only had one mission when she married into the Jiang family, and that was to help a certain someone before he died. Carry on the family line and continue the family line. A certain someone was suspicious. Why does the gentle and shy girl seem to be a different person at night? Tangwan thought, if I don't hurry up, I'm afraid he doesn't have much time left. But the child was born a month old and a year old. Tangwan was ready to be a widow. Why wasn't he dead yet? Later, Jiang Weya asked her in a low voice, "I heard that you look forward to my death every day. Do you want to wait until I die?" Chapter 1573. There was a small space inside the ball of light. Mountains rose and fell, and streams glowing with reddish-gold light gurgled through the forest. It was lush and full of vitality. The rich energy of heaven and earth filled it, making people feel relaxed and happy. Chu Liwei couldn't help but praise. As expected of the ancient divine beasts, they have a deep foundation. This cultivation environment alone isn't much better than the outside world. Even Lingxiao College and Yuntian Tower were slightly inferior to this place. Tuanzi blinked her eyes curiously and looked around. Chu Liwei chuckled. "This will be your territory from now on. You can look at it however you want." Dumpling turned its head and rubbed against her face intimately. The most important thing now is to help you transform into a human as soon as possible. Hearing this, Dumpling's body stiffened slightly. Chu Liwe picked it up. By the way, I haven't asked you before. What age does the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan have to transform into a human under normal circumstances? Dumpling looked conflicted. Chu Liwe raised her eyebrows slightly. After a long pause, Dumpling's voice came hesitantly from the bottom of her heart. 100 years old. The smile on Chu Liwe's face suddenly froze. There was a dead silence all around. After a while, Chu Liwe spoke with difficulty. How much? Tuanzi wailed, and its small head drooped down weakly. I didn't agree to it before. However, Chu Liwe didn't give it a chance to interrupt and directly agreed to Yi Zhao's request. It's going to be difficult to solve this problem now. The corner of Chu Liwe's eyes twitched violently. No wonder Yi Zhao was suddenly willing to relent. It turns out she knew that this matter would be difficult, but she didn't expect it to be a bottomless pit. After a long pause, Chu Liwe asked, "Why didn't you tell me before?" Dumpling flapped its little wings. You didn't ask. At that time, when it saw how confident she was, it thought that she must know and was confident that she could do it. Who knew? Chu Liwe rubbed his glabella, feeling a headache coming on. Dumpling looked up at her cautiously. One man and one beast stared at each other. Is there any other way? Chu Liwe thought about it carefully. Other than the age restriction, what was more important was the level of strength. Sure enough, hearing this, Tuanzi nodded obediently. As long as I can successfully open 3 meridians, I will be able to take human form. Chu Liwe was a little confused. Opening 3 meridians? Dumpling explained. Although we are all crimson gold heavenly phoenixes, our strengths are different. Generally speaking, every breakthrough is considered opening 1 meridian. Chu Liwe nodded and looked Dumpling up and down. Then you are now 1 meridian. Dumpling answered honestly. Chu Liwe wasn't surprised by this result. After all, Dumpling had just broken through a few months ago. It was normal for her to be at the level of 1 meridian. From 1 meridian to 3 meridians, it shouldn't be too difficult, right? Chu Liwe asked curiously. Then do you know how many meridians your clan leader has opened? Dumpling thought for a while and said, Clan leader should have opened 7 meridians. Amazing, Chu Liwe exclaimed in his heart. Dumpling nodded in agreement. Yes, except for the clan leader who opened 7 meridians. The others only opened 6 meridians. The others? Chu Liwe reacted. You mean the 5 elders? Tuanzi fluttered its wings and said carelessly, That's right. Yes, other than them, the rest are even lower in level. There are very few who have opened 5 meridians. Needless to say, it was talking about those who had surrounded the Phoenix Shrine. A white light suddenly flashed in Chu Liwe's mind. Then, she leaned closer to Dumpling and stared at its eyes seriously. Dumpling didn't understand. Chu Liwe held her breath, softened her voice, and asked, Dumpling, how did you know their level? Dumpling was stunned and said blankly, I knew it with one look. Wasn't that simple? Chu Liwe's emotions surged. 4 human cultivators, low-level cultivators, couldn't see the specific level of people who were stronger than them. Dumpling had only opened 1 meridian. Logically speaking, it should be the lowest level existence in the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. How did it see so much? Or was the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan different from humans? Because they had the same bloodline, it could directly sense this? Chu Liwe's heart was filled with doubts. If it was anyone else, it would be fine, but Yi Zhao was the clan leader. With such a high and mighty identity, how could he allow others to see through his true strength? No matter how she thought about it, it didn't seem right. She stared at Dumpling again. It was blinking at her with an innocent face. Chu Liwe's thoughts turned. After thinking for a long time, she said, Dumpling will basically stay here for this period of time. But if you go out later, don't mention this to anyone else. Dumpling didn't know what she was thinking in her heart. It could only obediently agree. Chu Liwe raised her eyes and looked around. Let me think. how are you going to open the remaining 2 meridians in this month's time? Night fell. The huge curtain of night enveloped the wilderness. Inside the Phoenix Shrine, it was brightly lit. A faint glow shone through the window. It was sacred and noble, unapproachable. Inside the main hall, it was silent. A lone figure stood there. It was Yi Zhao. He had been standing in this position for a long time, since the evening. He was looking at the wall in front of him. On it, there was a huge mural painted with thick ink and heavy colors. Between the chaotic heaven and earth, a reddish-gold figure was spreading its wings, passing through the sea of clouds and flying out. The feathers on its body were visible, almost as if they were real. Just by looking like this, one could feel the powerful aura that almost broke through the wall. This was the ancestor of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Unfortunately, its eyes were pitch black, as if they had been gouged out by something. Without its eyes, it seemed to have lost its soul, causing it to be helplessly bound within this cold wall. Ancestor, the purest bloodline, has finally appeared again. I wonder if this time can knock. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Clan leader, EU requests an audience. Yi Zhao came back to his senses. Come in. As he spoke, he turned around and looked at the person who came in. At this moment, the expression on his face had returned to its usual indifference and calmness. Elder Yi walked in. His gaze subconsciously swept past the huge mural, and he sighed his heart. Clan leader, are you looking at the ancestor again? You're always like this, it's very tiring. Yi Zhao's expression was indifferent. The ancestral worship ceremony is around the corner, and a new bloodline has returned. I should make a trip. Elder EU knew that it was useless to persuade him, so he didn't dwell on it for too long. Don't worry, I've already made arrangements for Shangwan Yu and Dumpling. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1574. Yi Zhao nodded. Of course I'm not worried about you. EU smiled. Actually, I thought you would hand them over to me directly today. I didn't expect you to call Iran first. Yi Zhao said indifferently. He won't do it anyway. If I pass them to you, it won't arouse suspicion. Igong had always been suspicious. If he did it directly, he would be suspicious again. It was good that he and Iran had rejected it this time. Iran has always been smart. Unfortunately, he was too smart for his own good. Elder EU's smile faded, and he shook his head. At this moment, he didn't look like his usual impulsive self. He was clearly a cunning old fox. Like master, like disciple. Yi Zhao knew what kind of people they were, so he naturally knew the most effective way to deal with them. Elder EU lowered his head slightly. You've always been good at strategizing. Today's matter is actually under your control. Yi Zhao raised his hand. No, I didn't want to keep that Shangwan Yu in the beginning, because he really didn't expect this woman to be so hooligan. Besides, Dumpling's bloodline is much better than I expected. At this point, Yi Zhao's face finally showed a hint of satisfaction. It's not a waste of effort. When he first knew that a crimson gold heavenly phoenix had appeared in Lingxiao College, he didn't pay much attention. It was only because he knew that it had formed a contract with a human that he wanted to call it back as soon as possible. However, after hearing some things, he vaguely felt that this crimson gold heavenly phoenix seemed to be a little unusual. Seeing it today, it was indeed true. Elder EU also smiled. Isn't that so? The purest bloodline hasn't appeared in our clan for a long time. It really came at the right time for us now. Unfortunately, it's still too young. Yi Zhao shook his head. If it can't take human form, it can't participate in the ancestral worship ceremony. Elder EU was shocked and suddenly looked up. You wanted to participate in the ancestral worship ceremony? With Dumpling's age, he thought that the patriarch would wait for the next time. Suddenly, something flashed through his mind. Is this the reason why you agreed to work for Shangwan Yu? Yi Zhao turned around and looked at the mural. Since she has the guts to accept this bet, let's see if she has the ability. Yintian Tower. Rongxiu worked day and night without stopping, rushing back from Lingxiao College. As soon as he stepped into the barrier, he saw Yan Xing waiting with a group of people. Seeing Rongxiu, Yan Xing immediately led her people to salute him. "Greetings, Your Highness." Rong Xiu raised his hand, indicating for them to get up. As he rushed towards Upsetting Peak, he asked, "What's the situation at the Yuntian Tower recently?" Yin Qing followed closely behind with a grim expression. Reporting to Master, all of the elders and the leaders of the 13 clans have gathered in the Ethereal Hall. 36 respected Elder Ming is in charge of the situation, but the situation isn't optimistic. Rongxiu narrowed his eyes, and his scarlet lips curled up coldly. He seemed to be smiling, but it didn't reach the corners of his eyes. They sure are fast. The last time the Yuntian Tower was so lively was when I took over the throne. That was a few years ago, but this time Bailey June was unconscious, and these people couldn't sit still anymore. He had rushed back as soon as he received the news from Lingxiao College, and these people were even faster than him. "Where's the patriarch now?" Rongxiu asked. Yin Qing's expression was grim. "The sacrificial god hall." After the incident, he knew that things were bad, so he immediately brought Bailey June to the sacrificial god hall and set up heavy guards to watch over him. He was worried that someone would do something to him. Rongxiu nodded lightly. "Well done. As long as Bailey June was still in their hands, the matter would be much easier to resolve." After saying those words, Rongxiu's figure flashed, and he rushed towards Upsetting Peak at an even faster speed. The atmosphere in the solemn ethereal hall was extremely tense. The respected elders of the Yuntian Tower were seated on two sides. The patriarchs of the 28 divisions and the others were seated at a slightly lower position. These dozens of people could be said to be the ones with the highest standing in the Yuntian Tower. At this moment, almost all of them were gathered here. Clearly, they were here for the matter regarding Bailey June. In the silent atmosphere, respected Elder Yu Jing finally couldn't hold himself back anymore and broke the silence. "It has been so long, but His Highness isn't back yet. Could it be that he was delayed on the way back?" 36 respected Elder Ming sipped a mouthful of tea and said calmly, "Lingxiao College is extremely far away from the Yuntian Tower, so it's natural that he couldn't be like all of you here, arriving in the blink of an eye after hearing the news." The faces of some people warped. Respected Elder Yu Jing chuckled. "You're right. It's a long journey to return from the Yuntian Tower. Besides, Lingxiao College has been facing a lot of trouble recently, so it's normal for His Highness to be delayed. This is especially so since our new consort is here as well." There wasn't anything wrong with those words, but those present were all intelligent people. How could they not hear the sarcasm in those words? Speaking of which, this consort is really incredible. We all thought that she was still in the sacrificial god hall, but who knew that she had already changed her appearance and secretly went to Lingxiao College. Her reputation has been rising recently. Respected Elder Tong Chuan chuckled and said calmly, "This consort is really incredible. This princess consort is very capable. It's no wonder that His Highness, the chosen saint, is interested in her." At this moment, a cold and deep voice suddenly sounded from outside the hall. "My consort is naturally unparalleled in the world." Digression. I'm sorry, everyone. The internet connection isn't good on the high-speed rail. I'll continue this afternoon. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1575. Upon hearing the voice, everyone in the ethereal hall was startled and turned to look. They saw a tall figure walking over against the light. He was dressed in a black brocade robe, and his handsome face was half lit and half dark. As he walked, the corner of his robe fluttered in the wind, bringing with it an unapproachable aura of nobility. His deep eyes were like an ancient well. They looked calm on the surface, but in reality, there were surging undercurrents, making it hard to fathom. When he stepped into the hall, a faint bloody aura silently spread out. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. This man would only have such an aura after killing someone or before he was about to go on a killing spree. 36 esteemed Elder Ming heaved a sigh of relief and took the lead to welcome him. "Welcome back, Saint." Among everyone present, his status was the highest. Seeing him greet him respectfully, everyone finally recovered from their shock and bowed as well. Rongxiu walked straight ahead. In the quiet hall, only his footsteps were exceptionally clear. Every step he took felt like he was stepping on everyone's hearts. He clearly didn't say anything. Just by walking past everyone, he naturally brought about an indescribable pressure. Rongxiu walked to the seat of honor, lifted his robe, and sat down. His gaze swept across the hall. The surroundings became even quieter. Without his permission, no one dared to stand up on their own. They could only awkwardly maintain their bowing posture. After a long while, Rongxiu spoke. "Everyone, you may dispense with the formalities." Only then did everyone sit down. However, the atmosphere in the hall was already very different from before. 36 esteemed Elder Ming leaned against the back of his chair leisurely. He raised his eyelids and sneered coldly in his heart. All of them were extremely arrogant. They even dared to mock the saint and princess consort, causing him to think that they were going to rebel right in front of him. Yet, the moment Rongxiu arrived, before he could say anything, these people had already retreated. They didn't even dare to let out a fart. He had really overestimated them. Rongxiu's gaze finally landed on respected Elder Tong Chuan and respected Elder Yu Jing. His crimson lips curved up slightly as he seemingly smiled. Respected elders have always had high standards, but today you are praising you so generously. Presumably, you are very satisfied with her. The faces of revered Elder Tong Chuan and the others instantly turned ugly. How was that a compliment? He was clearly mocking him. Sarcasm. But she couldn't say that in front of Rongxiu. After a moment of stalemate, Elder Tong Chuan turned his face away and said indifferently, "The princess consort was personally handpicked by His Highness the Holy Sun, so she's naturally different from the rest." Rongxiu nodded and said with a smile, "It's rare that revered Elder Tong Chuan shares the same opinion as I." Elder Tong Chuan choked and didn't want to speak anymore. 36 respected Elder Ming looked outside the door for a while and asked doubtfully, "Your Highness, the princess consort didn't come back with you?" Rongxiu nodded with an indifferent expression. The head of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan personally wrote a letter to invite her to the Divine Phoenix Mountain, so she didn't come back with I. As his voice fell, everyone uncontrollably sucked in a breath of cold air. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was extremely noble, and the head of the clan was famous for being arrogant. He didn't even take a venerable god expert seriously. Why did he personally write a letter to the head of the Shangguanyu? That's right. She seems to have contracted with a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix. Respected Elder Tong Chuan suddenly sneered. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan has never interacted with the human race and views the contract with the human race as a huge stain. Your Highness, aren't you worried at all that the princess consort has passed away? This didn't seem like a good thing. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows slightly. I understand what respected Elder Tong Chuan means. However, you're worrying too much. If the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan really wants to cause trouble for you, they could just go to her directly like Mao Yao. Isn't it unnecessary to write a letter to invite her? Respected Elder Tong Chuan was stunned. He felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't refute it. Many people secretly exchanged glances. Actually, the Holy Sun's words weren't without reason. According to the usual temper of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, if they really wanted to cause trouble for the Shangguanyu, they wouldn't go through so much trouble. Could it be that the princess consort was really going to the Shangguanyu as a guest? The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan rarely interferes with the affairs of the human race in the Divine Ruins world. This time, they took the initiative to invite the princess consort over. Who knows, they might be able to form good karma. 36 respected Elder Ming stroked his beard and slowly praised. Everyone was skeptical, but they didn't dare to ask. If it was in the past, they would definitely think that this was all fake. However, it was different now. During this period of time, the news about the Lingxiao College had spread like wildfire. The name Shangguanyu had also spread throughout the Divine Ruins world. Not only was she an all-rounder, but she had also broken through to the high deity level at such a young age. Other than that, her true identity was finally revealed to everyone. Not only was she the descendant of the weapon-refining venerable Shangwan Jing, but she was also the disciple of the dean of Lingxiao College, Nan Su Huai. A few months ago, everyone still looked down on her. Now, they only felt that their faces were hurting. Who knew what other trump cards the princess of Shangwanyu was hiding? What kind of heaven-defying methods did she have? Perhaps the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was really giving her face. It was hard to say. Rongxiu's gaze lingered on the dozen or so family heads for a moment. He said calmly, "You will handle her own matters. As for everyone, I rushed back as soon as I received the news. I didn't expect everyone to arrive even earlier." Some people were already sweating. Elder Yu Jingzuan's eyes flickered as he explained. They were also worried about the clan head, so they rushed over. "Oh." Rongxiu leaned back and tapped his knuckles on the armrest twice before he smiled faintly. "I thought that everyone was waiting for I to come back and give an explanation." Everyone was speechless. Actually, that was their plan all along. However, since Rongxiu had taken the initiative to strike first, they couldn't say anything. After a long while, Elder Tong Chuan finally spoke up. "How would we dare to investigate your highness's actions? It's just that the clan head has been unconscious ever since she returned from Lingxiao College. And the only one who knew more about what happened at that time was His Highness. Therefore, we only hope that your highness can come back to take charge of the situation and thoroughly investigate what happened." Her words were tactful, but she was actually pushing all the blame to Rongxiu without batting an eyelid. Unfortunately, Rongxiu wasn't someone who would be manipulated by others. He nodded his head in agreement. Elder Tong Chuan's words are reasonable. I rushed back because I had the same thoughts. In fact, I had already gone to the sacrificial god hall to visit the clan head. Now that I've seen it, I've indeed found a problem. Rongxiu paused for a moment before his gaze landed on Elder Yu Jingzuan. "Elder Yu Jingzuan, why do I sense your aura in the clan head's body?" Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1576. Elder Yu Jingzuan was shocked and raised his head. He had clearly erased all traces. How could he still be discovered? Meeting Rongxiu's cold, knife-like eyes, he instantly felt a chill down his spine. An indescribable fear surged from the depths of his heart. I didn't. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows slightly. "Elder Yu Jingzuan, are you saying that I have wronged you?" Elder Yu Jingzuan forced himself to calm down. No. Your Highness might have mistaken me for someone else. It's not I's first day knowing you. How could I have mistaken you for someone else?" Rongxiu interrupted him and asked. Elder Yu Jingzuan choked and couldn't say anything else. No one spoke in the hall. The air was stagnant. Rongxiu asked slowly. "Before I came back, I received news that the Patriarch had returned from Fangzhou City and returned to his own place. He didn't see anyone. Then where did the aura in his body come from?" Elder Yu Jingzuan's face gradually paled. "I came back to investigate this matter. Then, let's start with you. Elder Yu Jingzuan, Phoenix God Mountain." Chu Luiwei and Dumpling sat facing each other beside a golden stream. A gentle breeze blew and the leaves swayed, casting mottled shadows on the ground. "Dumpling, do you really not feel the signs of opening your second meridian?" Chu Luiwei stared at Dumpling and asked cautiously. Dumpling shook her head. "Sigh, I knew it." Chu Luiwei sighed deeply and looked at Dumpling in front of her. She was very worried. 3 days had already passed. During this time, she had tried all kinds of methods, but Dumpling still had no intention of continuing to break through. It didn't even have the slightest feeling. Chu Luiwei asked it countless times, but the answer was always the same. Bang! Chu Luiwei slumped back. Fluffy leaves flew into the air. I should have realized that it's not that simple. Dumpling broke through from the red-tailed red phoenix to the crimson gold heavenly phoenix. How many months had it been? It was unrealistic for it to break through again in the blink of an eye. According to Dumpling, ordinary crimson gold heavenly phoenixes would only have the chance to open 3 meridians when they were 100 years old. How old was it now? Wanted to open 3 meridians was no different from wishful thinking. Dumpling lowered her head, looking downcast. As expected, it was because it was too useless. If it could directly open 3 meridians, she wouldn't have such a headache and wouldn't have to be locked in here with it, unable to leave. The more Dumpling thought about it, the more she blamed herself. Her head was almost buried in the feathers on her chest. Sensing its mood, Chulua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He sat up again and pulled it over. It's not your problem. I was too impulsive before. I should have done my homework before agreeing. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. Dumpling, if you trigger Tianlei, can it help you break through? Previously at Thousand Wine Mountain, Dumpling had activated its bloodline and broken through to become a crimson gold heavenly phoenix because it had devoured the power of Tianlei. She didn't know if this trick would still work now. Dumpling tilted its head, looking confused. Actually, wasn't very sure either. Chu Luiwe made up her mind. I'll only know after I try. She looked up at the sky. This was a special space within the light ball, so the sky was also a faint crimson color. Only at the edge of the field, there was a bright golden light. With such rich heaven and earth energy, I should be able to successfully trigger Tianlei, right? Chu Luiwe thought of this and flew to the top of the mountain. There are many ways to trigger Tianlei, but the most convenient and fastest way was naturally to refine weapons. It just so happened that after she recovered her memories, she hadn't tested her current level yet. She could take this opportunity to take a look. Chu Luiwe lowered her eyes and looked at her wrist. With a thought, a light pink peach blossom mark slowly appeared. This thing was given to her by 36 respected elderming. It could teleport silently and wouldn't cause any energy fluctuations. Now that she had regained her high god state, this thing seemed a little useless. However, if she could raise its level and make it teleport further, it would be good. She did as she said. Chu Luiwe took out the star stone, jumped on it, and sat cross-legged. Tuanzi squatted beside her and looked at her eagerly. Chu Luiwe held her breath and focused. The next moment, her wrist gently turned. Instantly, light flickered. A bracelet slowly appeared on her wrist. It was a bracelet made of black wrought tan, as thick as a thumb, with a small light pink peach blossom blooming on it. The bracelet automatically fell off and quietly floated in front of her. There was a faint luster on it, quiet and reserved. And that peach blossom seemed to be swaying with the wind, full of vitality and very moving. She didn't know if she could succeed this time. Chu Luiwe thought to herself as she started to activate the elemental energy in her body. Time passed by slowly. However, on the mountain peak, it was still peaceful. Chu Luiwe opened her eyes and looked up. The sky was bright and cloudless. There was no movement at all. Chu Luiwe couldn't help but furrow her brows. She really couldn't do it here. Inside this light ball was a special area in Fengwang Valley, and it was full of natural energy. It was almost impossible for her to mobilize the energy in this area and trigger Tianlei with her own strength. Even if she was a high god now, compared to an ancient divine beast like the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix, it was still not enough. Chu Luiwe rested her chin on her hand and fell into deep thought again. Go out? That didn't seem right. In the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, there were countless pairs of eyes staring at her and Dumpling, waiting to see them make a fool of themselves. Once they left this place, no one knew what would happen outside. She didn't think that they would be on her side. But if she continued to stay here, what could she do to mobilize the natural energy? Suddenly, her brows twitched. Dumpling looked at Chu Luiwe blankly. Her expression was strange. She seemed excited and hesitant at the same time. After a while, it finally saw Chu Luiwe clench her fist as if she had made up her mind. Let's do it. Before Dumpling could react, she saw something appear in Chu Luiwe's palm. It was a thumb-sized shuttle-like seed. Its entire body was crimson, sparkling, and translucent. At this moment, a small leaf had sprouted from it. It was tender and cute. Dumpling's eyes widened, and she hurriedly retreated. This. Why did she take this out? At this moment, An idea popped up in Chu Liuyue's mind. That young and tender leaf swayed gently. Whoosh! The natural energy swept over. At the same time, in Fenghuang Valley, a strong wind blew. Within Fenghuang Valley, Elder EU, who had been resting, rushed out with a face full of shock. When he saw the heaven and earth energy tide in the sky, he was stunned. What is this? Digression. It would probably be night by the time they reached home. Tomorrow at 12 p.m., mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1577. The rest of the people in Fenghuang Valley sensed the commotion and rushed out. What happened? What happened? Why is the heaven and earth energy suddenly raging? Everyone was at a loss. In the end, they all looked up at the sky. When they saw the surging tide of energy, they were all shocked. Although Fenghuang Valley was filled with heaven and earth energy, it had always been peaceful. Such a situation had never happened before. But now, wait, the energy seems to be flowing in that direction. Suddenly, someone exclaimed in a low voice. Everyone looked in the direction he was pointing at. Did something happen over there? I'm not sure. Isn't that place very secluded? Why is it happening all of a sudden? However, when Elder EU saw the direction in which the energy tide was surging, he was shocked. Wasn't that where Shangguanyu and Dumpling were? Due to various reasons, he had arranged for them to be in a secluded area. Over there, besides them, there was no one else. Everyone, stay where you are. Don't move. Elder EU gave the order and dashed in the direction of the battle. Although the rest were curious, they did not dare to disobey his order and could only wait obediently. Elder EU's figure quickly disappeared into the distance. The crowd started to discuss again. The commotion in the sky showed no signs of stopping. Instead, it became even more intense. The heaven and earth energy seemed to be easily controlled by an invisible hand and rushed in from all directions. Even though they were standing below, they could still feel the terrifying pressure. At that moment, another person walked out of the ball of light. His expression was extremely ugly, and his eyes seemed to be burning with the flames of anger. It was Iran. He suppressed the anger in his heart and raised his head to take a look. Soon after, he asked coldly, "What's going on?" The people beside him saw that his expression was not right and did not dare to ask further. They only explained, "We're not sure. Something seems to have happened over there." Elder EU just went over. As he spoke, he even raised his hand and pointed. Iran looked in that direction and laughed coldly. "I've heard that Shangguanyu is a troublemaker. Back in Lingxiao College, they were very arrogant and caused a lot of trouble. I didn't expect that even after coming here, you still can't change your nature." After his reminder, everyone finally remembered that the people on the other side were none other than Shangguanyu and Dumpling, who had been here for a few days. If it really causes any accidents, that Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix won't be able to escape responsibility. Iran was furious. Originally, he was peacefully cultivating, but after receiving some guidance from his master, he finally felt a little bit of a breakthrough. But at this moment, Fenghuang Valley was in chaos, interrupting his cultivation. How could he not be angry? There wasn't much time left until the ancestral worship ceremony. He had to make the best use of his time to break through. After today's incident, all their previous efforts had been wasted. Seeing that he was in a bad mood, no one dared to ask about it in detail. They only echoed his words. Elder EU came to the light sphere where Chu Luiyue and Dumpling were. As soon as he got close, he felt a shocking pressure. His pupils shrank. Didn't Shangguanyu just become a high deity? Logically speaking, such a level of strength shouldn't be able to cause such a huge commotion, right? Just as he was about to raise his hand, the sky suddenly darkened. Elder EU paused and raised his head. He saw that the originally clear sky was now filled with dark clouds, and the wind was howling. A silvery bolt of heavenly lightning slithered through the clouds like a silver snake. Tianlei, Elder EU suddenly realized something, and his eyes widened slightly. Realizing the severity of the situation, he didn't hesitate. He pressed his hand on the light sphere and stepped in. The moment he stepped in, Elder Yu was almost blown away by the strong wind. He quickly steadied himself and looked in front of him. Then he saw Shangguan Yu sitting cross-legged on top of the mountain. Dumpling was small and squatting beside her. At this moment, an energy vortex had already formed above their heads, directly connecting to the golden ball of light barrier. The commotion outside was indeed caused by them. High deity! Elder Yu instinctively opened his mouth. Then he suddenly saw the bracelet hanging in front of Chu Luiwei and quickly shut his mouth. Is she refining a weapon? Although he was a crimson gold celestial phoenix, he still knew some things about the human race. When refining a weapon, the requirements for the surrounding environment were extremely high, and they couldn't be disturbed. However, at this moment, the woman suddenly raised her head and looked over. When she saw that it was Elder Yu, a bright smile bloomed on her face. Elder Yu. Elder Yu was a little confused. You're not refining a weapon? I am, but I'm still in the preparation stage. Chu Luiwei looked up. I think it'll take a while. Although the 2 Tian baby could easily mobilize the energy of heaven and earth, it would still take a while to attract enough Tianlei. As she spoke, she looked at Elder Yu with a smile. Why are you here? Elder Yu's eyelids twitched. Why am I here? She actually asked me why I'm here. Seeing that Chu Luiwei was asking sincerely, Elder Yu calmed the fluctuations in his heart and said, You've caused quite a commotion. You've caused quite a ruckus. The natural energies outside are starting to go berserk. Chu Luiwei nodded. I know. Wasn't this the reason why she had worked so hard? Elder Yu didn't know how to respond for a moment and fell into a long silence. Chu Luiwei blinked. Only then did she understand why he was here. Did it affect everyone? I just wanted to attract Tianlei. It shouldn't affect others, right? Elder Yu was even more speechless, because he thought about it carefully. Although all of this happened suddenly, it did not seem to have affected them much. At most, it could be considered a shock. As for hurting or hindering anyone, it didn't seem to be the case. If that was the case, it would be even more difficult for him to reprimand her. But this is indeed quite a big commotion. Elder Yu thought for a moment and said hesitantly, If it's not something very important, then, to be honest with you, I'm not actually here to refine weapons. I'm here to help Dumpling. Chu Luiwei shrugged and smiled helplessly. As you know, we only have a month. Elder Yu instantly understood and glanced at Tuanzi, who was beside him. I see. They summoned Tianlei to try to help Dumpling break through. This is also a method. If it were anyone else, he would definitely think that this was wishful thinking. However, Dumpling has the purest bloodline. Perhaps Elder Yu opened his mouth. Then you guys go ahead. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1578. When Elder Yu came out of the ball of light, he immediately sensed countless gazes on him. Elder Yu. Iran was the first to welcome him. He looked at his expression, but could not see anything wrong. Did Shangguan Yu cause trouble again? Although the crowd did not speak, their expressions showed that they wanted to ask the same question. Elder Yu frowned. No, it's just a small misunderstanding. It's just a small misunderstanding. Don't worry, everyone can go back and rest. Iran was stunned. Small misunderstanding? The sky above Fengwang Valley was still gloomy. Wind and thunder were roaring. You call this a small misunderstanding? Iran could not help but raise his voice. Elder, this has never happened in Fengwang Valley. Everyone is worried. Are you not worried at all? Elder Iran suddenly chuckled. Iran, are you doubting me? Iran was shocked and quickly lowered his head. Iran wouldn't dare. Shangguan Yu is refining weapons inside. That's what caused this commotion. Everyone, don't worry. Elder Yu looked around. Since when did the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan become so cowardly? Although he was smiling, his words caused the expressions of the surrounding people to change instantly. These words were simply pointing at the nose and scolding. After a while, someone argued. Elder, you misunderstood. We're not afraid. We're just surprised by the sudden commotion. As soon as he said this, everyone agreed. Yes, yes. We just didn't expect it. No human has come here before, right? Yes. To be honest, other than the loud noise, it didn't affect us much. Only then did Elder EU nod. As long as it doesn't ruin our reputation. Don't forget that when you're looking at her, she's looking at you too. If we embarrass ourselves in front of the human race, that's really, hearing this. Everyone hurriedly nodded in agreement. Only Iran was sullen. No impact. Of course, when he returned this time, he would have to spend a lot of effort to find that door again. However, he could not say these words in front of everyone. He could only swallow it. All right, let's disperse. Elder EU waved his hand. The crowd quickly dispersed. Iran had just turned around when he turned back unwillingly. Elder, you should be careful of that Shangwanyu. He had heard that she had caused a lot of trouble in the past. If she did something out of line again, the ancestral worship ceremony was about to begin. That would not be good. Elder EU glanced at him with a faint smile. Those who didn't know better would think that Iran was the elder instead. Iran felt a little guilty under his stare, and his voice gradually became softer. Only then did Elder EU calmly reply. These matters will be handled by the patriarch and the elders. You don't have to worry so much. Just focus on your cultivation. Iran knew that he had made a slip of the tongue. His heart beat wildly, and his face turned green and white. He hurriedly responded and turned to leave. Elder EU stared at his back for a while before shaking his head. He was originally a good seedling, but unfortunately, he was narrow-minded and too ambitious. It was not a good thing to be too smart. Elder EU turned back to look at the light ball. He retreated a little and began to watch over it. This matter was of great importance and involved Dumpling. Naturally, he had to be careful. The energy tide in Fengwang Valley surged for a full 7 days. Everyone was shocked at the beginning, but they gradually learned to accept it. In the end, they were almost used to it. Just as Elder EU had said at the beginning, although the commotion was not small, it did not cause too much trouble for them. After each of them strengthened the light ball's boundary, there was basically no trouble. During these days, Elder EU had pushed aside all other matters and had been watching over it patiently. Other than the continuous surging tide, everything seemed to have returned to normal. But to some people, that was not the case. Bang! Iran punched the stone wall in front of him fiercely. A crack began to spread from his fist. Intense pain came from his hand. But at this moment, Iran was not in the mood to care about this. He looked up in annoyance. The boundary that originally glowed with reddish-gold light seemed to be shrouded in a layer of shadow. He could vaguely hear the whistling of the wind. The commotion outside was still ongoing. It had been so many days. It still had not stopped. There was no end to it. Because of this, he had been unable to calm down for the past few days. The progress of his cultivation had been delayed again and again. He was so annoyed that he wanted to rush out and order Shangwanyu and the reddish-gold sky phoenix to get out. But he could not. The more he delayed, the more anxious he became, and the less he was in the mood to cultivate. He had fallen into a vicious cycle. Actually, the commotion was basically negligible, especially since Iran's status in the clan was not low. His light ball was of a higher level than many of his peers. The main reason he was like this was because of himself. Cultivation could not be rushed, but he was eager for quick success and wanted to break through immediately. This was not good. Even if he cultivated in a completely sealed and quiet space, the result would still be the same. Unfortunately, he couldn't understand these principles, so he subconsciously pushed the blame onto others. Iran closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The words that his master had said to him earlier kept appearing in his mind. That reddish-gold sky phoenix, could it really be a threat to him? Boom! At this moment, a loud boom was heard. Iran was shocked and immediately stepped out of the light ball boundary. In Fengwang Valley, the wind was still howling and the clouds were rolling. A bright and dazzling light suddenly flashed and fell from the sky. It was the Tianlei that had been summoned earlier. After 7 days of brewing, over 100 bolts of heavenly lightning had accumulated in the sky, and now they finally fell. Their target, the light ball in the depths of Fengwang Valley. Other than Iran, a few others came out after hearing the commotion. They were all curious and shocked at the scene. At this moment, a crack suddenly appeared at the top of the light ball. Several bolts of heavenly lightning struck down one after another. Boom, boom, boom. Digression, 6 p.m. Wow. Also, the list of friends is at the top of the comment section. Please join the group as soon as possible. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from LoveNet. Chapter 1579. Countless bolts of lightning struck the ball of light, one after another, and quickly disappeared. Everyone looked from afar and could only see the dazzling light. It was so dazzling that they could not open their eyes. Amidst the commotion, someone could not help but mutter softly. What kind of divine artifact is Shangguan Yu refining? It can actually summon so many Tianlei? No one knew. Elder EU was guarding at the side, and no one could get close. Naturally, no one knew what was going on inside. Thus, everyone could only watch from afar as the ball of light was gradually bathed in a sea of lightning. Elder EU quickly made his move. A reddish-gold flame surged out from his sleeve. In the blink of an eye, it formed a huge barrier that enveloped the space within a radius of dozens of kilometers. Countless lightning bolts splashed on it, causing it to shake violently. It seemed like it would break at any moment. Elder EU frowned, and a trace of seriousness appeared on his face. It was naturally difficult to cause such a commotion with just Shangguan Yu. It was highly likely that she had used the 2 Tian baby. Some time ago, what had happened in the Spiritual Firmament Academy had spread like wildfire throughout the entire Divine Ruins world. The most talked about topic was Shangguan Yu's true identity, as well as her many trump cards. Needless to say, the Heavenly Square Cauldron, the Supremacy Divine Artifact, and the most shocking thing was that she actually had a 2 Tian baby. Under normal circumstances, only Supremacy experts could control a 2 Tian baby. However, Shangguan Yu broke this rule. In fact, too many similar things had happened to her, so much so that everyone was starting to feel numb. In the end, only one conclusion could be reached. Shangguan Yu could not be judged by normal standards. It was the same this time. How did a Supremacy expert control a 2 Tian baby? Elder EU muttered to himself, his heart full of doubts. At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard from afar. He sensed something and quickly turned around to take a look. The person who came was none other than Igong. Before he arrived, he saw the Tianlei that filled the sky and the rumbling Fengwang mountain. His expression was extremely ugly. Are they trying to rebel against the heavens? In the past 10 days, Elder Igong had been busy preparing for the ancestral worship ceremony, so he didn't know the situation here. He was only alarmed by the heavenly anomaly today and the Tianlei riots. When he rushed over, he didn't expect to see such a scene. EU, what the hell is going on? Elder Igong's voice was filled with suppressed anger. You don't have to worry, First Elder. It's just that Shangguan Yu is currently refining weapons, which triggered Tianlei. Elder EU chuckled as he stepped forward. It's just a small matter. Small matter? Elder Igong immediately raised his eyebrows. He immediately laughed coldly and pointed to the front. EU, Fengwang Valley is in such a mess, and you say it's a small matter. It's not like I haven't seen humans refine artifacts before. It's impossible for them to cause such a huge commotion. There's clearly something fishy going on here. Where's Shangguan Yu? Let her out. Elder EU is still smiling, but he seemed to be in a difficult position. This isn't very appropriate. She's refining weapons at a crucial moment. If we force her out now, isn't that... EU, if something really happens, can you bear the responsibility? Elder Igong glanced at him coldly. The threat in his words was self-evident. He could tell that EU's attitude towards Shangguan Yu and Dumpling wasn't bad. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so protective of them at this time. Elder EU paused for a moment. After that, he took a step back and moved aside. Then, we'll do as First Elder says. Elder Igong looked at him meaningfully, then stepped forward. Although the Tianlei was extremely powerful, it wasn't fatal to him, who had already opened 6 meridians. Elder Yi Gong stared at the glowing silver ball, and a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. He didn't know how to stop them, but he didn't expect them to be the first to cause trouble. Creating such a commotion in Phoenix Mountain was equivalent to directly taking their lives. No one could say anything. Shang Wanyu was refining weapons, and this was the time when she needed to be the most careful. Once she was disturbed, her mind would be in a mess, and she would lose everything. At that time, as her contracted magical beast, Dumpling would naturally be greatly affected. Perhaps he could take advantage of this opportunity to end it all. Elder Yi Gong suddenly raised his hand, and flames surged in his palm. He was about to take action. Wait! A voice suddenly sounded. Elder Yi Gong heard it, and his heart was filled with disgust. Yishang, it's him again. It was obvious what Yishang wanted to do. Elder Yi Gong's eyes darkened, and he decided to ignore him. As long as he could solve the problem of Shang Wanyu, the rest of the matter wouldn't be a problem. He flipped his wrist and immediately took action. An arrow suddenly flew through the air, drawing a straight black line in the air, and headed straight for the light ball. Elder Yishang's eyes darkened when he saw this. At the same time, he waved his sleeves. Chi-chi! A gust of wind blew, blocking the arrow in front of him. In the next moment, the arrow was tightly gripped in his hand. Yishang! Elder Yi Gong frowned when his attack didn't succeed. What are you doing? I should be the one asking that question. Elder Yishang's expression was calm, but there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. Yi has already sealed the surroundings, and the energy won't spread outside for now. Great Elder, why are you in such a hurry to take action? Elder Yi Gong narrowed his eyes. Of course, I'm thinking for Fengwang Valley. If something happens, what kind of trouble can a mere exalted god cause? It's fine if you take action now and hurt Shang Wanyu, but if it affects the others, I'm afraid it'll be hard to explain to the clan leader, right? With the clan leader mentioned, Elder Yi Gong naturally couldn't say anything more. He gritted his teeth and snorted coldly. Good. Since that's the case, if anything happens, you'll bear all the responsibility. Elder Yishang smiled and returned the arrow in his hand. That's what I should do. Elder Yi Gong suppressed the anger in his heart and snatched the arrow back. Master, hearing the voice, he turned his head. Iran, why aren't you cultivating? Why are you here to join the fun? Iran hurriedly said. I only came out because I heard the commotion. It's not that. Elder Yi Gong sized him up, and his expression didn't look good. It's been 10 days since I gave him pointers. Why hasn't he broken through yet? But before he could ask, the Tianlei in the sky suddenly struck down at an even faster speed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1580. Seeing the commotion, everyone in Fengwang Valley turned to look, each with a different expression. This Shang Wanyu, what kind of divine weapon was it forging? Wasn't the speed at which it consumed Tianlei a little too fast? Could she really bear it? Dumpling, how do you feel now? Inside the ball of light, on the mountain peak, Chu Luiwei sat cross-legged, looking at Dumpling above her. The Tianlei did not land on the bracelet. Instead, they were all intercepted by Dumpling. Its small body was covered by the dazzling light, almost impossible to see clearly. Chu Luiwei could only rely on the contract between them to roughly guess its current situation. Dumpling did not make a sound. After a while, the lightning dissipated and its body was gradually revealed. At that moment, it was fiercely intercepting a Tianlei and swallowing it without hesitation. It was over. A few silver lights flashed across its body, then quickly disappeared under its feathers. The whole process was smooth and without any pause. Burp. Dumpling burped, then spat out another streak of lightning. Chu Luiwei made a tiss sound. Why are you eating in such a hurry? These are all yours anyway. Dumpling lowered its head and looked at her. It blinked pitifully, as if it was embarrassed. Actually, it did not do it on purpose. After seeing the Tianlei, it suddenly felt hungry. It did not know why, but the more it ate, the hungrier it became. In a moment of carelessness, she ate too quickly and burped. At first, it did not feel this way, but for some reason, Chu Yue's brows twitched. In reality, she was not as calm as she appeared to be on the surface. She wanted to attract Tianlei to help Dumpling break through, so she let Dumpling intercept the Tianlei halfway. But gradually, she realized that the development of the situation was gradually getting off track. Dumpling's tolerance and ability to swallow Tianlei far exceeded her expectations. Seeing Dumpling bathing in Tianlei, not only was it not injured, but also became more energetic. Chu Luiyue was completely relieved. Perhaps the experience in the eye of 1,000 wine spring made Dumpling so different? The answer was unknown, but she knew that attracting Tianlei would be helpful for Dumpling's breakthrough. The aura on its body was rapidly becoming stronger as the amount of heavenly lightning it devoured increased. As long as it persevered, it might really be able to open Dumpling's meridians in the remaining time. Soon, another bolt of heavenly lightning struck. Dumpling looked up, its eyes sparkling, eager to make a move. The waiting time seemed to be particularly unbearable. Everyone in Phoenix Mountain was starting to get impatient from waiting. They looked up again and again, but they were disappointed again and again. This was because the sky was still dark, and within the clouds, the heavenly lightning gathered endlessly, as if there was no end to it. No one knew how long this situation would last. Elder Iyu yawned and greeted them lazily. No, I've been watching here all this time, and my eyes have almost never closed. I really can't hold on any longer. I'll go rest first. With that, he turned around and left in a carefree manner. He was not worried at all. With Yi Gong and Yi Shang here, there would absolutely be no problem. Besides, he was indeed tired. Judging from the current situation, it would not stop for a while. He might as well go back and take a nap. Elder Yi Gong's expression was very displeased. Was he pushing all the blame onto them? But he still had a lot of things to do. How could he keep waiting here? Who knew how long he would have to wait? However, he was unwilling to leave just like that. On the other hand, Elder Yi Shang seemed to be unperturbed as he waited patiently. Elder Yi Gong thought for a moment and turned to look at Iran. Go back first and cultivate in peace. Iran did not want to waste any more time here, but he was worried that he would not be able to calm down after returning. Master, this commotion is really a little big. Elder Yi Gong had been his master for many years, so he naturally guessed his thoughts. He could not help but frown and pat his shoulder. Iran only felt a warm force enter his body instantly. His heart skipped a beat. As long as you're focused enough, this won't affect you, understand? Iran hurriedly responded. Thank you for your teachings, Master. Go back. Yes. Iran did not continue to argue and quickly left. Elder Yi Shang's gaze lingered on him for a moment, but he quickly looked away as if nothing had happened. After Iran left, many people began to return one after another. However, whether they could completely withdraw their thoughts was another matter. A day passed quickly. Elder Yi Gong's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. His throbbing temples showed that he was on the verge of exploding in anger. What is Shangwan Yu trying to do? After so long, Fengwang Valley still could not calm down. The heavenly lightning continued to gather and strike down one after another. He had already lost count of how many bolts of lightning had entered the ball of light. Elder Yi Shang smiled faintly. Refining weapons is very troublesome. It was said that some weapon refiners would spend months or even years to refine a divine artifact. Although Shangwan Yu's level is not that high, her Taizu is a venerable weapon refiner. Her talent and ability in this area should not be weak. 1 or 2 days, naturally, it is not enough. Elder Yi Gong choked. His lips moved, but in the end, he swallowed the rest of his words. Elder Yi Shang glanced at him, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. What he did not say was that Tianlei would usually summon everyone to refine weapons at once, or once in a while to refine them repeatedly. But unlike Shang Wanyu, it seemed like there was no end to it at the beginning. It went on and on. Usually, only weapon refiners would know about such things. He only knew about it because he had seen it unintentionally. However, there was no need to tell Yi Gong this. He crossed his arms and looked ahead. How did Shang Wanyu do this? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1581. Another few days passed. Everything was the same in Fengwang Valley. After looking up for the umpteenth time, he realized that the number of Tianlei had not decreased. Elder Yi Gong could no longer hold himself back and left in anger. He wanted to see an accident happen in Shang Wanyu. He also wanted to see the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix suffer. It would be best if they could disappear together. Unfortunately, he did not have the time to wait here. The ancestral worship ceremony was about to begin. There were many things waiting for him to arrange. Not long after Elder Yi Gong left, Elder Yi Yu slowly came over. He grinned at Elder Yi Shang and said, "I'll keep an eye on things here. You'd better go busy yourself with the ancestral worship ceremony." Elder Yi Shang didn't refuse and nodded. "Keep an eye on things." Elder Yi Yu laughed out loud. "I know. Don't worry." Other than Fengwang Valley, the other places of Fengwang Mountain were bustling with activity. Of course, this bustle was mostly solemn, nervous, and serious. Every time they held an ancestral worship ceremony, they would prepare a grand ceremony, and this year was no exception. Many people were busy, checking repeatedly, afraid that they would miss anything. But at this moment, Fengwang Temple was still silent. Within the temple, Yi Zhao took one last look at the huge mural and bowed deeply. "Ancestor, you must protect our clan." He maintained this posture for a long time, then finally turned and left the temple. After walking out, there was a huge square in front of the main hall. Clear and lustrous white jade stones were laid out neatly and could clearly reflect each person's figure. In the center was the totem of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. At this moment, the square was guarded by many people. This was the place where the ancestral worship ceremony was held. When they saw Yi Zhao, they all bowed respectfully. "Greetings, clan leader." Yi Zhao raised his hand and looked at the surroundings before he asked in an indifferent voice, "Where's Yi Gong?" Everyone looked at each other. The person in front lowered his head. "Clan leader, Grand Elder should still be in Fengwang Valley." Yi Zhao frowned. "What is he doing there? Have you finished the preparations in the main hall?" Hearing the dissatisfaction in his tone, the people below naturally did not dare to say anything. Yi Zhao lifted his gaze and looked in the direction of Fengwang Valley. From here, one could vaguely see dark clouds gathering in Tianlei. Of course, he knew what was going on over there. Fengwang Valley has always been under the care of EU. As a Grand Elder, why did he run over to join in the fun for such a long time? "Please forgive me, Patriarch." Suddenly, a somewhat hurried voice sounded. It was Yi Palace who had just returned. When he saw Yi Zhao standing there, he knew something was wrong, but he could only bite the bullet and go over. Yi Zhao's gaze was as sharp as a knife. He slowly scanned his body, as if he wanted to peel off a layer of his skin. Elder Yi Gong's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. But in the end, Yi Zhao did not reprimand him too much. "Forget it, let's talk about this later." First, he had to prepare for the Great Hall. Elder Yi Gong secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Yes. Yi Zhao looked at the sky and frowned. "I see that you still have a lot of things to do. If you don't complete them in the remaining time." Elder Yi Gong was about to defend himself when he heard Yi Zhao continue. "The date of the ancestral worship ceremony will be postponed." Yi Gong's heart skipped a beat. "Clan leader?" Digression, November Fringe event winners list. 1-0. Star of monthly votes. Bei Xiaodao, 27. Star of commentary. Chu Changshinamo Lure 2. QQ reading star of recommendation. Monody, 196. Star of commentary. Lu Guyunbei Bei contact Fei Yue as soon as possible tomorrow at 12 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1582. The ancestral worshipping ceremony was held once every 100 years. It was one of the most important events for the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. How could he dare to delay the ancestral worshipping ceremony because of him? Don't worry, clan leader. I've already made the necessary preparations. I won't delay the ceremony. Elder Egong's voice trembled as he spoke. Although he held a high position in the clan and held great power, there were some things that even he did not dare to cross. Yizhao glanced at him. You also know that there is no room for mistakes during the ancestral worshipping ceremony. Everything has to be done with extreme caution. You have been staying at Phoenix Mountain for the past few days, right? It is inevitable that you will be distracted. Delaying the time is better than making any mistakes when the time comes. Many gazes were directed at them. Elder Egong's face turned green and white. He was extremely embarrassed. Yizhao's words were not without reason, but in front of so many people, he really did not give him any face at all. Furthermore, he had been the great elder for so many years. It was not the first time he had to prepare for the ancestral worshipping ceremony. Nothing had ever happened before. Why would he suddenly die just because he stayed in Phoenix Valley for 2 more days? A thought flashed through his mind as he glanced at Yizhao. Suddenly, he became suspicious. Why did it feel like the clan leader wanted to delay the ancestral worshipping ceremony? Elder Egong retracted his gaze, calmed himself down, and said word by word, "That's right. Don't worry, clan leader. I will personally supervise in the coming days to ensure that nothing goes wrong. If anything happens, I'm willing to bear all the responsibility." This was a bit like a military order. Yizhao raised his eyebrows slightly. "Since you have said so, I will believe you this time." Elder Egong was stunned. Why did he not say that he was delaying and agreed directly? He quickly looked up. Unfortunately, he could not see anything from Yizhao's face. He could only suppress his suspicions. "All right, go and prepare." Yizhao waved his hand. Elder Egong bowed his head and replied, "Yes." Yintian Tower. In the ethereal hall, it was dead silent. Rongshio's question made Elder Yu Jingzu in panic. In just a short while, his back was drenched in sweat. His clothes were stuck to his body, and it was sticky and cold. It was extremely uncomfortable. It's because Elder Yu Jing hesitated, but he could not find a reason. He felt that Rongshio's gaze was as sharp and cold as an ice blade when it landed on him. Right at this moment, a low and deep voice suddenly sounded. When something happened to the patriarch, the first person to go in was Yu Jing. Wasn't it normal for the patriarch to have his aura on him? The Elder Tong Chuan. Hearing this, Elder Yu Jing's train of thought was suddenly broadened. He sat bolt upright. Yes. At that time, I had some matters to discuss with the patriarch, but after knocking on the door for a long time, there was no response. I was worried, so I barged into the clan leader's room. When I entered, I saw that the clan leader was unconscious, so I took his pulse and injected a surge of origin energy into him. That's all. He averted his eyes. I had slipped my mind that there was such a matter. No one knew whether he had really forgotten about it or not. It was up to Rongshio whether he believed it or not. Is that so? Sitting at the head of the table, he tapped his hand lightly on the armrest. His eyes were deep and unfathomable, making it impossible to tell what he was thinking. Elder Tong Chuan raised his eyebrows. Elder Yu Jing has always been close to the clan leader. When he saw that something happened to the clan leader, he couldn't help but worry about him. Actually, I do have some thoughts about why the clan leader suddenly fell unconscious. Rongshio raised his eyebrows. Elder Tong Chuan's face suddenly revealed a hint of worry, and he sighed deeply. Actually, this old man thought that the clan leader had suffered a blow in Fong province and was in a bad mood. That was why he locked himself in the house and refused to see anyone after returning. Since your highness has already checked the clan leader's condition, you should know that there are no injuries inside or outside his body. Perhaps it has something to do with his mood. There was silence. The incident in Fong province that day had already spread like wildfire, and almost the entire Divine Ruins world knew about it. The clan leader of Yintian Tower, Bailey Jun, had brought Jiang Juan with him since she was a child, taking care of her carefully and doting on her. Who would have thought that in the end, she wasn't his biological granddaughter? This matter had already become a joke to everyone. No one would be able to accept it, let alone Bailey June, who had always cared about his face. Elder Tong Chuan raised his eyes and looked at Rongxiu. Your Highness, don't wash your dirty linen in public. You were too impulsive that day. After the incident in Fang Province, he had almost lost all his face. It would be difficult for him to appear in front of the people of the Divine Ruins world in the future. If he could come back and talk about it in private, the clan leader might not be like this. Rongxiu smiled with a lazy expression. Elder Tong Chuan, do you mean everything is I's fault? That's not what this old man meant. Elder Tong Chuan said. This old man just feels that there should be a better way to deal with the incident that day. Clan leader knew that Lingxiao College was in a lot of trouble, but he still brought Jiang Juan there. Moreover, after Jiang Juan's many crimes were exposed, he was still very biased towards her. I didn't want to get involved in all these things at that time, but the clan leader only cared about Jiang Juan, so I couldn't persuade him no matter what. In the end, things developed to that point, and I didn't want to see it. Rongxiu interrupted him and looked at him with a smile. However, there was coldness at the corner of his eyes. Could it be that Elder Tong Chuan thinks that I want to lose face in front of all the experts of the Divine Ruins world? Elder Tong Chuan choked. Of course, he couldn't admit it. But if it wasn't premeditated, why would Rongxiu arrange for someone to replace Jiang Hetian and take the Jiang family under his command? He had clearly planned it all out. Elder Tong Chuan even felt that Rongxiu had known about the matter between Bailey June and Jiang Jiwan long ago. As for losing face, at most, Rongxiu would lose face, but the one who really lost face was still Bailey June. Rongxiu looked around. Did you all come with the same idea this time? His voice was very soft and faint, but weighed heavily on everyone's heart like a heavy stone. Elder Tong Chuan hurriedly explained. Your Highness, you misunderstand. This old man just felt that the incident might have caused too much of a blow to the clan leader, so, of course, there might be other possibilities. Of course there are other possibilities. Rongxiu said lightly. The clan leader has just broken through, and his strength has increased greatly. Even if he is depressed, he shouldn't be like this. Instead of investigating, you're all here waiting to question I? His thin scarlet lips curled up slightly. You guys are getting bolder and bolder. Love Network has a better reading experience. Chapter 1583. Looks like this Shang Guanyu is not only brave, but also capable. Fengwang Valley. Elder Yu looked at the ball of bright light in the distance and could not help but click his tongue. It had been a total of 13 days since she triggered the heavenly lightning. Everything was the same as before, and there was no sign of it stopping. Every day, every night, every moment, the scene in Fengwang Valley was the same. He was getting tired of looking at it. At first, he was quite interested in counting how many heavenly lightning bolts had gathered. But he gave up soon after, because he realized that it was impossible to count. Those Tianlei seemed to be free as they struck down one after another. Lightning flashed, and it was blinding. How could he count them? It has been so long. Why is there still no sign of it? Elder Yu knew that Shang Guanyu had summoned so many Tianlei not to refine the divine artifact, but to help Dumpling break through. Unfortunately, until now, there were still no signs of it happening. But there was not much time left. Elder Yu squinted his eyes and suddenly turned around to look at the Phoenix Shrine in the distance. The ancestral worship ceremony was getting closer and closer, and the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was getting busy. He did not know if he could make it in time. Chu Luiwei was also at a loss. She sat cross-legged on the star stone and raised her head slightly. She looked at Dumpling, who was still busy in midair with mixed feelings. Logically speaking, it should be over. It had been so long, but Dumpling did not show any signs of breaking through to the Meridian opening realm. Instead, it seemed to be getting hungrier as it ate. The only change was that there were many flashing silver lightning bolts on its body, which occasionally swam through its feathers. The aura on its body was still rising at first, but since 3 days ago, it had stagnated. Seeing that Tuanzi had once again devoured all the lightning bolts that landed, Chu Luiwei turned around and glanced at the bangle that was suspended in midair. With Dumpling around, it would be quite difficult to complete the refinement process. Chu Luiwei rubbed his forehead. Dumpling had devoured quite a bit of Tianlei's power in the eye of the 10,000 wine spring. But at that time, in order to stimulate the bloodline in its body, it broke through from the red-tailed red phoenix to the ancient divine beast crimson gold heavenly phoenix. It was understandable. But what was going on now? Its small body was almost like a bottomless pit. None of the Tianlei that had fallen had returned. After thinking for a long time, Chu Liwei finally couldn't help but ask, "Dumpling, when do you plan to break through?" Dumpling was stunned. She lowered her head and looked at her. Just as she was about to say something, there was a loud explosion in the sky. A few more Tianlei bolts flew down again. Dumpling's eyes lit up. She didn't have time to say anything to Chu Luiwei and hurriedly went to greet him. Crackle, crunch. Looking at Dumpling devouring the Tianlei with great proficiency, the corner of Chu Luiwei's eyes twitched fiercely. Then, she accepted her fate and swallowed the rest of her words. Fine. There were some things that really didn't need to be asked anymore. Beside the vast and boundless sea, Shangguan Jing stood with his hands behind his back and looked ahead with a solemn expression. So much time had passed, but you still hadn't returned. He didn't know what the situation inside was like. The more he waited, the more uneasy he felt. At this moment, a reddish-gold light suddenly rushed out from under the sea surface. It went straight to the sky. Bang! That ball of hot flame drew an extremely brilliant arc in the sky, and then suddenly exploded. Countless sparks bloomed. It was noon. The sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly, but the sparks were still bright. In the end, it formed a huge pattern of a crimson gold heavenly phoenix spreading its wings in the sky. Shangguan Jing's heart tightened. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something, and a trace of shock flashed past his eyes. Could it be that the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's ancestral worship ceremony had begun? He had never been to the Divine Phoenix Mountain. Even when he was unhindered in the Divine Ruins world 1,000 years ago, he had never come into contact with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. In the eyes of the world, the two great ancient divine beasts were extremely mysterious. However, there were many legends about their ancestral worship ceremony. It was rumored that their ancestral worship ceremony was only held once every 100 years. It was very grand and had a profound meaning. Shangguan Jing looked over again. In the sky, the pattern of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix formed by the blooming flames didn't dissipate. Instead, it seemed to be fixed. Every single spark was burning passionately and emitting a dazzling light. It was really bright and dazzling. Shangguan Jing couldn't help but feel even more uneasy. How important was the ancestral worship ceremony? The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan had always hated the human race. Logically speaking, it was impossible for them to let Yu continue to stay there. Why hadn't she come out yet? Right at this moment, a melodious and loud cry came from afar. In an instant, it almost spread throughout the entire sea. Shangguan Jing's heart trembled, and he almost couldn't stand still. Immediately after, he saw a layer of ice rapidly spreading above the sea in front of him. Transparent ice covered the sea surface. At a glance, the crimson gold light could be faintly seen. It was exactly the same as the ice bridge that appeared that day. However, this time, the layer of ice had extended from the narrow ice bridge to the entire surface of the sea. In just a short while, more than half of the sea in front of Shangguan Jing was already frozen. At a glance, it was cold and clear. However, below it, there were crimson gold flames that burned silently, solemn and sacred, silent and silent. In the square in front of the Phoenix Shrine, the members of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan were divided into two sides. Each of them was anxiously and expectantly waiting for the ancestral worship ceremony to begin. At this moment, the clan leader and the 5 elders were still in the Phoenix Shrine and hadn't come out. Everyone's mood wasn't as tense as before. They were discussing something in low voices. After waiting for so long, it's finally here. This is my first time participating in the ancestral worship ceremony. Me too. There's going to be a talent test during the ceremony. I don't know if I can get a good result. Actually, I'm not worried about the talent test. After all, everyone more or less knows their own standards. It's just that, after the test, there's still a competition. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to win beautifully. The one with the most confidence should be Iran, right? I heard that this time, he's aiming for the position of young master. Hasn't he always considered himself as the #1 person in the younger generation? But since he has this ability, it's not up to us to say anything. Why isn't he here yet? Hearing this, many people looked around. Indeed, they didn't see Iran's figure. Strange. He's always the most active on such occasions. Why is he so late today? Let's not talk about him. It's almost time. The clan leader and the rest haven't come out yet. Inside the Phoenix Shrine, Yi Zhao and the 5 elders stood. Elder Yi Gong raised his eyes. Clan leader, it's time. We should go out. Digression. My hands are frozen, so I'm writing very slowly. My friends who have won a prize should quickly join the group and look for February to get the rewards. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.